Hello. We are going to read the story, the Russian folktale, Go to the Verge of Destruction and Bring Back Shmat-Razum. So I'll read the story and then we'll go ahead and discuss it. In a certain kingdom, there lived a wifeless, unmarried king who had a whole company of sharpshooters. They went to the forest, shot birds of passage, and furnished the king's table with game. Among those sharpshooters was one named Fedot, who hit the mark and almost never missed. For this reason, the king loved him beyond all his comrades. Once, while shooting in the early morning, just at dawn, Fedot went into a dark, dense forest and saw a blue dove sitting on a tree. He aimed, fired, and struck her wing, and she fell to the damp earth. The sharpshooter picked her up, was going to twist her neck and put her in his bag, when the blue dove spoke. "O brave youth, do not tear off my stormy little head. Do not send me out of the white world. Better take me alive, carry me home, put me on the window, and watch. As soon as sleep comes upon me, strike me that moment with the back of thy right hand, and thou wilt gain great fortune." Fedot marveled. What can it be? What can it mean? Thought he. In seeming a bird, but she speaks with a human voice. Never has such a thing happened to me before. He brought the bird home, placed her on the window, and stood waiting. After a short time, the bird put her head under her wing and fell asleep. The sharpshooter struck her lightly with the back of his right hand. The blue dove fell to the floor and became a soul maiden so beautiful as not to be imagined nor described, but only told about in a tale. Such another beauty could not be found in the whole world. She said to the young man, "The king's sharpshooter, thou hadst known how to get me. Now know how to live with me. Thou wilt be my wedded husband, and I thy God-given wife. I am not a blue dove, but a king's daughter." They agreed. Fedot married her, and they lived together. He is happy with his young wife, but does not forget his service. Every morning at dawn he takes his gun, goes out into the forest, and shoots game, which he carries to the king's kitchen. His wife sees that he is wearied from this hunting, and says, "Listen, my dear, I am sorry for thee. Every God-given day thou dost wander through forests and swamps, comest home wet and warm, and profit to us not a whit. What sort of a life is this? But I know something so that thou wilt not be without gain. Get of rubles 200, and we will correct the whole business." Fedot rushed around to his friends, got a ruble from one and two from another, till he had just 200. "Now," said his wife, "buy different kinds of silk for this money." He bought the silk. She took it and said, "Be not troubled. Pray to God and lie down to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." He lay down and fell asleep. His wife went out on the porch, opened her magic book, and two unknown youths appeared at once. "What dost thou wish? Command us." "Take this silk, and in one single hour make a place of such wonderful tapestry as has not been seen in the world. Let the whole kingdom be embroidered on it, with towns, villages, rivers, and lakes." They went to work, and not only in an hour, but in 10 minutes they had the tapestry finished, a wonder for all. They gave it to the sharpshooter's wife, and vanished in an instant, just as if they had never been. In the morning she gave the tapestry to her husband. "Here," said she, "take this to the merchant's Rose, sell it, and see that thou ask no price of thy own. Take what they give." Fedot went to the merchant's Rose. A trader saw him, came up, and asked, "Well, my good man, is this article for sale?" "It is." "What's the price?" "Thou art a dealer. Name the price." The merchant thought and thought, but could not fix a price. Now a second, a third, and a fourth came, and no one could set a price on the tapestry. At this time the mayor of the palace was passing by and saw the crowd. Wishing to know what the merchants were talking about, he jumped out of his carriage, came up to them, and said, "Good morning, merchants, dealers, guests from beyond the sea. What is the question?" Here is a piece of tapestry that we cannot value. The mayor looked at the tapestry and marveled himself. Look here, sharpshooter, said he. Tell me in truth and sincerity, where didst thou get such glorious tapestry? My wife made it. How much must one give for it? I know not myself. My wife told me to set no price on it, but what people would give, that would be ours. Well, here are 10,000 for thee. Fedot took the money and gave up the tapestry. The mayor was always near the person of the king, ate and drank at his table. When he went to the king's to dine, he took the tapestry. Would it not please your majesty to see what a glorious piece of work I have bought today? The king looked amazed. Oh, excuse me. The king looked. He saw his whole kingdom as if on the palm of his hand. He opened his mouth in amazement. This is indeed work. In all my life I have never seen such cunning art. Well, Mayor, say what thou pleasest, but I shall not give this back to thee. Straightway the king took 25,000 out of his pocket, placed the money in the mayor's hand, and hung the tapestry in the palace. That's nothing, thought the mayor. I will order another still better. Straightway he galloped to find the sharpshooter, found his cottage, and went in. And the moment he saw Fedot's wife, he forgot himself. His errand, he knew not why he had come. Before him was such a beauty that he would not take his eyes off her all his life. He would have looked and looked. He gazes on another man's wife, and in his head thought follows thought. Where has it been seen, where heard of, that a simple soldier possesses such a treasure? Though I serve the king's person and rank as a general, I have never beheld such a beauty. The mayor came to his mind with difficulty, and went home against his will. From that hour, from that time, he was not his own. Sleeping or waking, he thought only of the beautiful woman. He could neither eat nor drink. She was ever before his eyes. The king noticed the change and asked, What has come upon thee? Some grief? Oh, your majesty, I have seen the sharpshooter's wife. There is not such a beauty in the whole world. I am thinking of her all the time. I can neither eat nor drink. With no herb can I charm away my sorrow. The desire came to the king to admire the woman himself. He ordered his carriage and drove to the soldiers' quarters. He entered the room and saw unspeakable beauty. No matter who looked on the woman, an old man, a youth, each was in love, lost his wits. A heart flame pinched him. Why, thought the king, am I wifeless and single? Let me marry this beauty, that is the thing. Why is she a sharpshooter's wife? It is her fate to be queen. The king returned to his palace and said to the mayor, Listen to me. Thou hast known how to show me this unimaginable beauty. Now find the way to get rid of her husband. I want to marry her myself. And if thou dost not put him out of the way, blame thyself. For though thou art my faithful servant, thou wilt die on the gallows. The mayor went his way, sadder than before. How was he to finish the sharpshooter? He could not think. As he was going through back lanes and waste places, a Baba Yaga met him. Stop, said she, servant of the king, I know all thy thoughts. If thou wilt, I will aid thee in this unavoidable sorrow. Aid me, grandmother, and I'll pay what thou wishest. The king has ordered thee to put an end to Fedot the sharpshooter. That would be easy enough, for he is simple, were it not for his wife, who is awfully cunning. Well, we'll give them such a riddle that it will not soon be explained. Go back to the king and say, Beyond the thrice ninth land, in the 13th kingdom, is an island. On that island, a deer with golden horns. Let the king bring together 100 sailors, the most good-for-nothing fellows, all bitter drunkards, and order that a rotten old ship which has been out of service for 30 years be fitted for the voyage. Let him send Fedot the sharpshooter on that ship to get the deer with golden horns. In order to go to the island, it is necessary to sail neither more nor less than 3 years, and back from the island 3 more, 6 in all. Well, the ship will sail out on the sea, serve about a month, and sink right there. The sharpshooter and the sailors will go to the bottom, every man. The mayor listened to these words, thanked the Baba Yaga for her counsel, rewarded her with gold, and went off on a run to the king. Your Majesty, said he, Fadat can be furnished in such and such a fashion. The king consented and issued an order at once to the navy to prepare for a voyage, an old rotten ship, to provision it for 6 years, and man it with 50 sailors, the most dissolute and bitter drunkards. Messengers ran to all the dram shops and drinking houses, collected such sailors that it was dear and precious to look at them. One had a black eye, another had his nose driven to one side. As soon as it was reported to the king that the ship was ready, he sent for the sharpshooter and said, Now, Fadat, thou art a hero of mine, the first shot in my company. Do me a service. Go beyond the thrice ninth land to the 30th kingdom. In that place is an island. On that island lives the deer with golden horns. Take it alive and bring it to me. Fadat became thoughtful, knew not what to answer. Think not, said the king, but if thou do not the work, I have a sword, and thy head leaves thy shoulders. Fadat wheeled round to the man and went forth from the palace, came home in the evening powerfully sad, not wishing to utter one word. Why dost thou grieve, my dearest? Said his wife. Is there some mishap? He told her all. This is why thou art grieved. There is reason indeed, for it is an exploit, not a service. Pray to God and lie down to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening. Everything will be done. The sharpshooter lay down and slept, but his wife opened her magic book. At once 2 unknown youths appeared before her and asked, What dost thou wish? What dost thou need? Go beyond the thrice ninth land to the 30th kingdom, to an island. Seize there the deer with golden horns, and bring it here. We obey. It will be done before dawn. They rushed like a whirlwind to the island, caught the deer with golden horns, and brought it straight to Fadat's house. An hour before daybreak all was done, and they vanished as if they had never been. The beautiful wife roused her husband at dawn and said, Look out, the deer with golden horns is walking in the yard. Take it with thee on board the ship, sail forward 5 days, on the 6th turn back. The sharpshooter put the deer in a close, fastened cage, and had it carried on board the ship. What's there? Asked the sailors. Oh, supplies and medicine. It's a long way. We shall need many a thing. The day for sailing came. A great crowd of people who went to see the ship leave the wharf. The king went himself, made Fadat chief over all the sailors, and bade him farewell. The vessel sailed 5 days on the sea. The shores had long vanished. Fadat ordered 120-gallon cask to be rolled onto the deck, and said to the sailors, Drink, brothers, spare it not. Your souls are your measure. They were delighted, rushed to the cask, began to drink, and got so drunk that they rolled down on the deck and fell fast asleep at the side of the cask. Fadat took the helm, turned the ship around the harbor, toward the harbor, and sailed home. So that the sailors should not know anything about it, he kept pouring liquor into them from morning till night. When they began to open their eyes after one drunken fit, a new cask was ready. On the 11th day, the ship drew up at the wharf. The flag was hoisted, and guns fired. The king heard the firing and ran down toward the landing. What does all this mean? He saw the sharpshooter, fell into a towering passion, and rushed at him furiously. How hast thou dared to come back before time? But where was I to go, your majesty? Some fool might have spent 10 years in sailing over the seas and got nothing, but I, instead of spending 6 years, did the work in 10 days. Would you be pleased to look at the golden horned deer? Straightway they brought the cage from the ship and let out the golden horned deer. The king saw the sharpshooter was right. He could not touch him. He let him go. The sailors had a holiday for 6 years. No one could ask them to work during that time, for the voyage was counted as 6 years, and they had served their time. Next day the king called the mayor into his presence and threatened him. What meanest thou? Art making sport of me? 'Tis clear thy head is not dear to thee. Do what thou pleasest, but find means of putting Fedot to a cruel death. Let me think, your majesty, we may mend matters. The mayor went his way, betook himself to back lanes and waste places, met the Baba Yaga. Stop, servant of the king, I know that thy thoughts. Dost wish I will help thee in trouble? Oh, help me, grandmother. Fedot has brought the deer with golden horns. Oh, I have heard that already. It would be as easy to put Fedot out of the way as to take a pinch of snuff, for he is simple, but his wife is terribly cunning. Well, we'll give them another riddle that they will not solve so quickly. Tell the king to send the sharpshooter to the verge of destruction and bring back Shmat-Razum. That's a task he will not accomplish to all eternity. He will either be lost without tidings or come back empty handed. The mayor rewarded the old witch with gold and hurried to the king, who heard him and summoned Fedot. Fedot, said the king, thou art a hero, the best shot I have. Thou hast brought me the deer with golden horns. Now thou must do me another service, and if thou wilt not do it, I have a sword, and thy head leaves thy shoulders. Thou wilt go to the verge of destruction and bring back Shamat Razum. Fedot turned to the left, walked out of the palace, went home, and sad and thoughtful. My dear, asked his wife, why art thou sad? Hath some misfortune happened? Ah, said he, one woe has rolled from my neck and another rolled on. The king sends me to the verge of destruction to bring back Shemut Razum. For thy beauty I bear all this trouble and care. That, said she, is no small task. 9 years to go there, and 9 to come back, 18 in all. Will good come of it? God knows. But pray to the Lord and lie down to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening. Tomorrow thou'lt know it all. After Fedot had laid down, his wife opened her magic book and asked the two unknown youths if they knew how to go to the verge of destruction and bring back Shamat Razum. They answered, we know not. In the morning she roused her husband and said, go to the king and ask for the road golden treasure. Thou hast 18 years to wander. When thou hast the money, come home for the parting. Fedot got the money from the king and returned to take farewell of his wife. She gave him a towel and a ball, and said, when thou goest out of the town, throw the ball down before thee, and wherever it rolls, do thou follow. Here is a towel of my own work. No matter where thou art, wipe thy face with it after washing. Fedot took farewell of his wife and comrades, bowed down on all 4 sides, and went beyond the barrier. He threw down the ball before him. It rolled on, and he followed after. About a month had passed when the king summoned the mayor and said, the sharpshooter has gone to wander over the white world for 18 years. It is evident that he will not come back alive. 18 years, as thou knowest, are not 2 weeks. Many a thing may happen on the road. He has much money, and robbers will fall upon him perhaps, strip him, and give him to a savage death. I think we can begin his wife now. Take my carriage, drive to the soldiers' quarters, and bring her to the palace. The mayor drove to Fedot's house, entered, saluted the sharpshooter's wife, and said, hail, witty woman, the king has ordered us to present thee at the palace. She went. The The king received her with all gladness, led her to a golden chamber, and spoke these words, dost thou wish to be queen? I will take thee in marriage. Where has it ever been seen or heard of, asked she, that a wife was taken from her living husband? Though he is a simple soldier, he is my lawful husband. If thou wilt not yield of thy free will, I will take thee by force. The beautiful woman laughed, struck the floor, became a blue dove, and flew out through the window. Fedot journeyed over many lands and kingdoms, the ball rolling ahead of him all the time. When he came to a river, the ball became a bridge. Whenever he wanted rest, it became a soft couch. Whether whether it is long or short, a story is soon told, but a deed is not soon done. The sharpshooter arrived at a splendid palace. The ball rolled to the gate and disappeared. Fedot went straight up the stairs into a rich chamber, where he was met by three maidens of unspeakable loveliness. Whence comest thou, good man, and for what? O beautiful maidens, ye have not let me rest after the long journey, but have begun to inquire. First ye should give me to eat and drink, put me to rest, and then make inquiry. Straightway they set the table. When he had eaten and drunk and rested, they brought him water, a basin, and an embroidered towel. He took not the towel, but said, I have one of my own. When they saw it, they asked, Good man, where didst thou get that towel? My wife gave it me. Then thy wife is our own sister. They called their aged mother. The moment she saw the towel, she recognized it. Why, this is my daughter's work. She asked the guest all sorts of questions. He told her how he had married her daughter and how the king had sent him to the verge of destruction to bring back Shmat-Razum. Oh, my dear son-in-law, of that wonder even I have not heard. Wait a moment, maybe my servants have. She went out on the balcony and called in a loud voice. Presently all kinds of beasts ran up, and all kinds of birds flew to her. Hail to you, beasts of the wilderness, birds of the air. Ye beasts run through all places, ye birds fly everywhere. Have ye never heard how to go to the verge of destruction, where Shmat-Razum lives? All the beasts and birds answered in one voice, No, we have never heard. Then the old woman sent them all to their homes in hidden palaces, forests, and thickets, went to her magic book, opened it, and at that instant two giants appeared. What is thy pleasure? What dost thou wish? This, my faithful servants, bear my son-in-law and me to the ocean wide, and stop just in the middle above the very abyss. Immediately they seized the sharpshooter and the old woman and bore them on a stormy whirlwind till they stopped just in the middle above the abyss. They stood up themselves like pillars, holding the old woman and the sharpshooter in their arms. The old woman cried out with a loud voice, and all the fishes and living things in the sea swam to her in such multitudes that the blue sea could not be seen for them. Hail, fish and worms of the sea, ye swim in all places, ye pass by all islands. Have ye not heard how to go to the verge of destruction, where lives Shmat-Razum? All worms and fishes answered in one voice, No, we've not heard. All at once an old limping frog, who had been 30 years out of service, pushed her way to the front and said, Quack, quack, I know where to find such a wonder. Well then, my dear, thou art the person I need, said the old woman. She took the frog and commanded the giants to bear them home. They were at the palace in a flash. The old woman asked the frog how her son was to go. Oh, said the frog, that place is at the rim of the world, far, far away. I would conduct him myself, but I am very old. I can barely move my legs. I couldn't jump there in 50 years. The old woman took a bowl with some fresh milk, put the frog in it, gave the bowl to Fedot, and said, Carry this in thy hand. She will show thee the way. The sharpshooter took farewell of the old woman and her daughters, and went on his journey, the frog showing him the way. Whether it was near or distant, long or short, he came at last to a flaming river, which beyond which was a lofty mountain with a door in the side. Quack, quack, said the frog, put me down out of the bowl. We must cross the river. He put her on the ground. Now, good youth, sit thou on my back. Do not spare me. He sat on her back and pressed her to the ground. She began to swell and swelled until she was as big as a stack of hay. The sharpshooter's one care was to keep from falling. If I fall, thought he, I shall be crushed. The frog cleared the flaming river at a jump, became small as before, and said, Now, good youth, I will wait here, but do thou enter that door in the mountain. Thou wilt find a cave. Hide thyself well. After a time, two old men will come in, listen to what they say, and watch what they do. When they are gone, act as they did. The sharpshooter entered the door of the mountain. It was so dark in the cave that if a man strained his eyes out, he could not see a thing. Fadot felt around and found a cupboard, crept in. After a while, two old men entered and said, Shmat-Razum, feed us. That moment, however, it happened. The lamps were lighted, the dishes and plates rattled, and various kinds of food and wine appeared on the table. The old men ate and drank, and then ordered Shmat-Razum to remove everything. Everything disappeared in a flash. Neither table, nor food, nor wine, nor lights remained. The two old men went out. The sharpshooter crawled from the cupboard and cried, Hi, Shmat-Razum, what dost thou wish? Feed me. Again the lights, the table, the food, and drink appeared as before. Fadot sat down at the table and said, Hey, Shmat-Razum, sit down, brother, with me. We'll eat and drink together. It is irksome for me alone. The voice of the unseen answered, O kind man, whence has God brought thee? It is nearly 30 years of service that I serve these old men in faith and in truth, and all this time they have never once seated me with themselves. The sharpshooter looked and wondered. He saw no one, but the food was swept from the plates as if with a broom. The bottles raised themselves and poured the wine into glasses. Behold, in a moment bottles and glasses are empty. Shmat-Razum, dost thou wish to serve me? Asked the sharpshooter. I'll give thee a pleasant life. Why not? I am sick of being here, and thou, I see, art a kind man. All right, pick up everything and come along. The sharpshooter went out of the cave, looked around, saw no one, and asked, Art thou here, Shmat-Razum? Here, I'll not leave thee, never fear. Very well, said Fadot, and sat on the frog. She swelled, jumped over the river, and became small. He put her in the bowl and went on the house homeward road, came to his mother-in-law, and made his new servant entertain the old woman and her daughters. Shmat-Razum gave them such a feast that the old woman came very near, dancing from joy. She ordered that 3 bowls of milk be given to the frog every day in reward for her faithfulness. The sharpshooter bade good-bye to his friends and set out for home. He traveled and journeyed till he was almost wearied to death. "O Shmat-Razum," said he, "if thou couldst only know how tired I am just losing my legs." "Why not tell me long ago?" asked the other. "I should have brought thee home quickly." With that he seized Fadot and bore him like a rushing whirlwind, so swiftly that his cap fell off. "Hey, Shmat-Razum, wait a minute, my cap is gone." "Late, my master, thy cap is now 3,000 miles behind." Towns and villages, rivers and forests just flashed before the eye. As Fadot was flying over a deep sea, Shmat-Razum said, "If thou wishest, I will make a summer house in the midst of the sea. Thou canst rest and acquire a great fortune." "Well, make it." They dropped down toward the sea, and behold, where a moment before the waves were rolling, an island rose up, and in the center a golden pleasure house. "Now, my master, sit down in this house, rest, and look at the sea. Presently 3 merchant ships will sail by and cast anchor. Invite the merchants, entertain them well, and exchange me for 3 wonderful things which they have. I'll come to thee again in thine own time, in my own time." Fadot looked. 3 merchant ships were sailing from the west. The merchants saw the island and wondered. "What does this mean?" asked they. "How many times have we sailed by here and seen nothing but water, and now an island and a pleasure house? Let us stand up to the shore, brothers. Let us look and admire." They stopped the ships, cast anchor. The 3 merchants stepped into a light boat, went to the island, landed, and saluted Fadot. "Hail, worthy man! Good health to you, foreign merchants. We crave kindness. Come in, rejoice, have a good time, and rest yourselves. This pleasure house was made on purpose for passing guests." They went in and sat down. "Hey, Shmat-Razum, meat and drink." A table appeared. On the table, wines and meats, whatever the soul could desire, was at hand in a moment. The merchants opened their mouths in amazement. Let us exchange, said they. Give us thy servant, and take any one of our wonders. What wonders have ye? Look, and thou wilt see. One merchant took a small box from his pocket and opened it. That minute, a glorious garden was spread over the whole island with flowers and paths. He closed the box, and the garden was gone. The second merchant took an axe from under his skirts and began to hit, strike. A ship came out, hit, strike, another ship. He struck 100 times 100 ships. They moved around the island under full canvas with soldiers and cannon. The sailors run and fire guns. The commanders come to the merchant for orders. He amused himself, hid his axe. The ship vanished from the eye, were as if they had never been. The third merchant took a horn, blew into it at one end. That minute an army appeared, cavalry and infantry, with muskets and cannons and flags. From every regiment came reports to the merchant, and he gives them orders. The army marches with music sounding and banners waving. The merchant took his horn, blew in at the other end. There is nothing. Where has all the power gone to? Your wonders are strange, said the sharpshooter, but these are all playthings for kings, and I am a simple soldier. If thee will exchange, however, I agree to give you my unseen servant for all three of your wonders. Is not that rather too much? Well, you know your own business, I suppose, but I will not exchange on other conditions. The merchants thought to themselves, what good are all these ships and soldiers and garden to us? Let us exchange. At least we shall have enough to eat and drink over all our lives without trouble. They gave the sharpshooter their wonders and asked, Shmat-Razum, wilt thou come with us? Why not? It's all the same to me where I live. The merchants returned to their ships and said, Now, Shmat-Razum, fly about, give us to eat and drink. They invited all the men and had such a feast that every one got drunk and slept a sound sleep. The sharpshooter was sitting on the golden summer house. He fell to thinking and said, I am sorry. Where art thou now, trusty servant? Here, my master. Fadot rejoiced. Isn't it time for us to go home? The moment he spoke, he was borne through the air as if by a whirlwind. The merchants woke up and, wishing to drink off the effects of their carousal, cried out, Give us to drink, Shmat-Razum. No one answered. Nothing was brought. No matter how much they screamed and commanded, no result. Well, gentlemen, this scoundrel has swindled us. Now Satan himself could not find him. The island has vanished. The pleasure house is gone. The merchants grieved and regretted, then hoisted their sails and went to where they had business. The sharpshooter soon arrived at his own kingdom, came down by the seashore. Shmat-Razum, canst thou build me a palace here? Why not? It will be ready directly. The palace appeared so splendid that it could not be described, twice as good as the king's. Now the box was opened, and all around the palace was a glorious garden, with rare trees and flowers. The sharpshooter sat by the window admiring the garden, when all at once a blue dove flew in through the open window, struck the floor, and became his young wife. They embraced and kissed each other, then made inquiries and gave answer. Said his wife to Fadot, Since the time thou didst leave me, I have lived a lone dove in the forests and thickets. Next morning the king went out on the balcony and saw by the shore of the blue sea a new palace and a green garden around it. What insolent fellow has built on my land without leave? Couriers hastened, discovered, reported that the palace was built by Fadot, who was living there then, and with him his wife. The king's anger increased. He gave orders to collect troops and go to the seashore, destroy the garden, break the palace into small pieces, and give the sharpshooter and his wife to a cruel death. Fadot saw the strong army approaching. He took his axe quickly and struck. A ship came forth. He struck 100 times. 100 ships were ready. He blew his horn once. Infantry was marching. He blew it a second time. Cavalry was galloping. The commanders rushed to him from the ships, from the army, for orders. He ordered them to give battle. The music sounded at once. The drums rattled. The regiments advanced. The 100 ships opened a cannonade on the king's capital. The army moves on at the sound of music and beat of drums. The infantry rout the king's soldiers, the cavalry take them prisoners. The king sees that his army is fleeing, hurries forward himself to stop it. But what could he do? Half an hour had not passed before he was killed. When the battle was over, the people came together and begged the sharpshooter to take the government of the kingdom into his hands. He agreed, became king and his wife queen. Okay.
Happily ever after.
Yeah. Yeah, I wondered, I didn't ask you, why did you choose this story?
Well, I heard about it. I heard about it on this other podcast. It's called the Idiots and Fools podcast. Um, it's put out, I think, like once a month or so by these two guys in the Gurdjieff work. You can find it on Substack. You do have to subscribe. It's not called Idiots and Fools. That's just something they do. The Substack is, I believe it's Zen, Yoga, and Gurdjieff.
Hmm.
And then out of that, they do the podcast, like, you know, like I said, like every month or so.
Hmm.
And they just have sort of a conversation back and forth for half an hour. But they referenced a Russian fairy tale where the hero, the phrase they used was, I go, I know not where, by means I know not how.
Hmm.
And then had a bit of a laugh around the fact that, like, on this guy's mystic quest, the thing that he finds at the end of the mystic quest is his mother-in-law, which is not very typical. So I was like, I thought it was pretty funny. I was like, oh, you know, you and I do these fairy tale things. Maybe it's a fun one. So I looked it up, and it's a long one. It's a good one, but I was also surprised that it ties into it reminded me both of the Fortunatus one that we did a while ago
Me too. Yeah.
and the Iron Shoes as well, where you
Hmm.
have the hero. So in Fortunatus, you've got the hero sort of, there's the three treasures. He conquers, he kills the king at the end, and he becomes the ruler. But
Hmm.
obviously, our guy here, I've already forgot his name, the sharpshooter, Fedor. Obviously, he's a nicer guy than Fortunatus.
Yeah.
But then you also have the three treasures, and then in the Iron Shoes, you have the hero who marries the beautiful princess, loses her. In
Yeah.
the Iron Shoes, it was his own fault. In this case, it's the king's fault.
Yeah.
But again, he loses, and he has to go and, like, sort of prove himself on these journeys and with these trials and tribulations. Then he comes back and he ends up, you know, marrying again. And this time he gets to, so it's sort of like this hero is blameless, but he gets the rewards at the end of both the other stories. And I just thought it was a neat enough kind of trilogy thing that it was like, oh, we got to do this one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of the Iron Shoes too, and the other one. Another way this is like the Iron Shoes is that he saves, he saves the princess, and she also, well, in the Iron Shoes, she doesn't have a physical transformation as far as I can remember. But the thing that I thought was the coolest parallel was, so he marries a magical woman basically, and then he has to leave her, and she, in both stories, she gives him something. And in the Iron Shoes, she gives him a ring that can save him, but only when, in certain, he should only use it if he's in dire need. In this one, he has a towel, and he's to use it like every time he's supposed to use a towel. So it's a little bit different, but then it does save him, although through a different thing of like recognition. And there's also the thing about how she's like a kind of weaver, or, a maker of some kind. And then it's linking back to nature too, I think, with her family is basically all women. And there's sort of this, they're like very connected to nature. Like her mother is sort of like the goddess of nature, or some kind of, I don't know if Diana is the right one, or, some kind of
Mm,
goddess of nature, basically sorceress of nature or something
mm.
connected. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely like Mother Earth vibes.
yeah.
The beasts and the fishes in the sea. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this one was. I mean, it's typical of fairy tales, but not so much of the two we've just referenced, where the hero is kind of the only blameless figure in the entire story.
Yeah.
And he starts so like I'm looking at it as like, okay, well, what's the message? He's not a prince, he's not a noble, he's somebody who is very good at his job
Mm.
and seems to at least be fulfilled enough in what he does that he keeps doing it. Like he's like, okay, I'm I'm hunting game for the king. I go, I'm good at that. I kill the birds in the forest, I bring them, I give them to the king. That's what I do. And
Hmm.
he seems kind of settled at that. Like there's no
Mm.
inclination, there's no mention of him wanting to anything other than that. To the
Yeah.
fact where he ends up with this beautiful sorceress as his wife, and he's like, "Okay, honey, I'm off to work."
Yeah.
And he comes back exhausted, and she's like, "Look, look, you got to do better than this. Like you deserve better than this." So marry a sorceress if you can, I guess is the lesson.
Mm.
But but you see him being sort of a stand-up guy, sort of a little naive. I mean, but the Baba
Mm.
Yaga points it out. He's very simple. He'd be easy to get rid of, except for his wife.
Mm.
Um, and even when he's on his journeys, you see him progressively grow wiser and wiser. But at first, he's just sort of doing whatever whatever his wife tells him.
Mm.
And I sort of have been thinking of like the wife as kind of like you could see her as being sort of like intuition, like
Mm.
having a really good sense of opportunity of like, oh, I can't explain this, but I just, women's intuition is usually is kind of a stereotype, but I
Mm.
think women in fairy tales can often stand in for that kind of intuitive knowing because it is so
Mm.
common, more so in women than in men. Not that
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
things aren't variable and all of that, but
Mm.
generally speaking. Um, And so I think you sort of have like if you sort of take the metaphor layers off, you have a tale of somebody who's dedicated themselves to being very good at what they're doing and fulfilling
Mm.
their role
Mm.
and sort of genuinely showing up for their life. And through that, they end up with a reward, of some sort of inner guidance or some sort of inner voice. And
Mm.
they do that, like he meets his wife by going about his job and killing birds, and then
Mm.
finding one and hearing a voice that says, "Don't kill me, I'm
Mm.
special." And he
Yeah.
listens to it and he's kind. So like
Yeah.
right off the bat, you've got this like caring person who's fastidious about his job and is sort of able to but not so fastidious that he's like, well, I'm sorry, you're the king's bird, I got to kill you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then there goes his whole adventure. So he's
Yeah.
he's able to kind of hold those two things well, and I
Yeah.
think that's how I see him being the hero, the lesson of how to be a hero.
Yeah, I think that's great. He's accomplished and he's uh admired. The king mentions later, "You're my number one sharpshooter." There's no doubt about it. But yeah, but he's still sort of mindful when he's doing his job, as any real hunter or soldier should really be, right? You shouldn't mindlessly be marching forward. You have to kind of keep all your senses open. And then yeah, that's where intuition can speak to you, right? When you're fully open with your body, mind. And
Yeah.
then yeah, he does, he's done this 1,000 times before, but yeah, he doesn't he doesn't kill the bird. He can hear its voice. By the way, I wanted to mention, you mentioned the something like, "I go not whither and fetch I know not what." This is I had seen this before in the Wikipedia, and so when you mentioned it, I brought it up.
Hmm.
And yeah, so do you know about Arnie Thompson types? They're like scholars that I heard about this when I took a folklore class with Alan Dundee's. But so folklorologists excuse me, folklorists ha- have classified like the types of tales of the world
Hmm.
and like given it a number.
Oh wow. Very scientific. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so this type is Arnie Thompson type 465, the man persecuted because of his beautiful wife, which would, of course, be a thing in folk tales, right? Because this, of course, has happened in history so many times, right? And people can sense the sort of danger. Even Rousseau talks about it like, be careful, if you want a pleasant life, don't necessarily have a beautiful wife, So,
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that that was how neat to have that tie into the sort of the folklore background.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And we
Um,
can't, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we could almost like analyze this from that perspective of like all there's such danger that comes from this, right? And then because this guy isn't some kind of top dog or something. So, and then the top dogs do want his wife and they figure out a way for him to, come upon an accident. And then but his wife is powerful, so she figures out some sort of way to manipulate everything so that they end up being top dog.
Yeah, yeah, because the king, that's what I was about to say. So this is perfect. The king is such a bastard. Like there is no redeemable qualities to the king here. He's in the palace. He doesn't even interact with his people. He had every scene we see him is in the palace. The mayor's the one that like goes out and comes back and goes out and
Mm,
comes back.
mm.
But the king's always just like, yeah, I'm the king. Like maybe no, the king, I think he does go to take the woman from the house, I think. Or maybe the mayor. No, the mayor takes the woman to the palace, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The
So
king the king does
king's
go
a
down
lazy
to the
fucker.
seashore to see off the doomed voyage that he has kind of
Oh, right.
manipulated into existence. And then he's waiting there to like stamp his feet when they come back early with the thing that he purportedly wanted. But
Right.
yeah.
Right. That is interesting. I wonder if there's anything to that. Um, but to get back to the folklore type, like, yeah, he is he's got this beautiful wife. He's not the top dog. He is sort of at the mercy of these more powerful men, and yet the wife is the thing that sort of keeps him safe. She's in the story. She's the piece of the story that sort of protects him from those things. So there's both. She's both the threat, but then also the protection against the threat. She causes it and she protects him from it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything to that, but it's interesting to see. I was also thinking here of the Spirit in the Bottle story that we went over, where you have the father who's the woodsman cutting down in the forest, and he's working very hard, and he's just working, 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 and then you
Mm,
have the son come in as the influence of like, let's pull you out of just your workaday life and bring you onto something greater. And here you have the wife doing that, where the sharpshooter is um he would just, if it was just up to him, he'd just go to work every day, he'd kill the birds and that's it. And so she, like any good opportunity, is both a threat and an opportunity. And she sort of begins to bring him out of himself. And the first thing she does is says, "Hey, you look weary." So she points to him, and then she says, um, "Go borrow some money and buy some thread with it, and then just go to sleep, and I'll take care of it." So at that point, we have our hero being very led. He's just being told what to do. And he's just sort of going on. He's like, "Oh, okay, honey, that's what you want. I'll go do it." And he goes to bed. And then there's this tapestry, and she, or the intuitive hit of it, this sort of this magical nature of it is like she's able to say, well, bring it to the market, and gives him all this advice about how to handle it. And he's like, okay, and he does that, and he sort of follows the guidance, even though you can think like Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack brings his donkey to the market, and he's told to make sure he gets money for it. And he's like, "Oh, I'll just take these beans." Like he's kind of a dopey guy. This guy's like, "No, she said to not set a price. I'm not going to set a price." So he sort of follows the advice of the sorceress woman, the sort of magical, voice in his life, his magical influence in his life. He follows it without really questioning it too much. And as he does that, you see him actually grow in wisdom. So a little bit later. I mean, we can get into the a little bit later, but you do see him get smarter and smarter. Where in the end, he's like playing tricks on other people, and he's able to just kind of, he starts to take on some of the qualities of the trickster, the trickery of his wife, the wisdom of his wife. He starts to grow in him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, in a way, she completes him. I mean, both in this and the Iron Shoes, the hero starts out, yeah, kind of aimless, purposelessness. They don't have ambition or anything. And but then they go to another place, a dark place, the dark part of the wood in this story. And then that's where and they do something, they risk something a little bit here, but and yeah, they get the voice of intuition and then the magic and all that stuff, kind of that intuition like fills in maybe for that ambition or that drive or that aim that they did not have before.
Yeah, it's almost like it gets sublimated and comes out cleaner because, the ambition, the king has ambition, the mayor has
Yeah.
ambition, but it's not a
Yeah.
good kind of ambition. And
Yeah.
so you have this sharpshooter without any of that kind of ambition. He just wants to do his job, but he's the one that gets the reward. He's the one that um, both has the beautiful wife and then also has sort of the growth process happen to him. He grows as a person, whereas everybody else in the story
Yeah.
either stays the same or ends up dead if you're the king.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And he does have that ambition to help him to, I mean, excuse me, that intuition to help him look out and to change his life. And it's sort of like in ways that maybe, I don't know, that are proper or something. Whereas the king, you know, he does he ha- isn't a king supposed to have ambition to sort of like make the realm thrive or, increase security if there's a threat? I mean, the king is not supposed to have the ambition of looking down into his kingdom and going, I want that, like, I mean, that's not right. And he
Yeah.
does that with the mayor too. Like, I'm gonna just take your tapestry.
Yeah. 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 What is, yeah, he just keeps threatening to kill people. He's like, I've got a sword and I'm going to take your head if you don't do what I
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Uh,
right.
like, that's definitely not the sign of a good king, you know?
Yeah, it'd be hard to argue with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And the mayor too. The mayor's like, um, he just he never complains. He never says anything. He's like he's got the hots for this guy's wife, and he's like, I can't stop thinking about her. I can't stop thinking about her. And then the king is like, well, now I can't stop thinking about her, and she's mine. So go get her for me. And he's like, okay, sir.
Yeah, the mayor is like he's the dopiest one of all. I mean, like, have a filter, man. I mean, have you never? It says he never leaves this king's side, which I guess he probably just wants to take scraps from his table. But if you had a brain in your head and you never left someone's side, maybe you would observe them and have some sense of their character. This king is, what can we say? Just a walking id, maybe, and like if you are totally enamored with this guy's wife, don't tell him.
hmm Yeah, don't
If
you know
you're
the king's gonna go after her? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ugh.
I thought of the so we think of the sharpshooter. You mentioned he's playing his role, he's doing his job really, really well. He's high quality in his position now. And his wife, I thought of her as kind of bringing him into the world of entrepreneurship, kind of self-directed or something like that. And he's no longer taking what is available, but shooting birds in the forest and things, but he is making something new. And it's also bringing him into the social world. He borrows from his fellows in order to get the silk that she can make this tapestry. And then you have to go to the market, and you have to sell. So it's kind of like she brings him into the world of business or something like that, a little more complex kind
Yeah,
of
that's
life.
yeah, that's really interesting in that she's both because when I think of like being a businessman and being an entrepreneur and like starting your own thing, I don't think witchy sorceress woman. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's not they're not so separate, especially nowadays. But when you're talking like stories and tropes and fantasy stories and archetypes and stuff, it the idea that the intuitive, magical, powerful feminine is where the I'm going to survive, I'm going to succeed in business and in creating, joining the marketplace and like all the things you just said, like that's a really interesting linking of sort of two different archetypes. That's
Mm.
that's really cool. I
Mm.
don't know, maybe that just shows my ignorance of stories if there are a bunch out there, but I've certainly not heard them. I like it. I like it. I think it makes her this sort of font of um, his own flowering as a human.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking, that it makes sense that he would, yeah, do something else a little more creative or something if you can think that he has just had his intuition opened up. So he's kind of looking around for opportunity, thinking creatively, being social, things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's really good. I hadn't thought of that. Obviously, that gets projected onto women in the real world quite a bit. So I do
Mm.
want to acknowledge that expecting a woman to come along and suddenly change your life is probably to put too much pressure on her. But as a psychological factor, getting in touch with your feminine, getting in touch with your intuition, getting in touch with your emotions, all the things that you stereotypically as a man would sort of exile as, oh, that's not me. I mean, this is very basic Jungian. This is integrating your anima, and
Mm.
that's a powerful thing. And I think that's what we're talking about here. But you
Mm.
definitely don't want to project your anima onto a woman in real life, or worst case, she'll take advantage of you. Worst case, well, I don't know if that's worst case. On the one hand, worst case, she takes advantage of you and you're just screwed. And on the other hand, you make life hell for her and she probably doesn't want to stick around because no
Yeah.
human can carry an archetype.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking though, yeah, you definitely don't want to project anything as much as you can onto others, especially, you want to find out what you will, but you have to find out what you're what you're projecting and kind of be careful about that and try to be open and yeah, not have it get out of control. But what I was thinking sociologically is that I've heard people talk about how oftentimes a man will after he marries, a woman will help him to be a little more ambitious or a little bit more outward looking, or sort of not so much just have his nose to the grindstone in his current job. But have you
Mhm.
not heard about this kind of thing? That's one thing that I was thinking of when I read this story. It's kind of like, and you can just think about it as when someone has a partner, they're just exchanging ideas, at the end of the day. And there's sort of two is better than one. You're thinking more creatively, you're thinking of other things and.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does make sense. I mean, you're right, I've definitely heard that idea of like the woman being married she can bring the more ambition
Mm.
because she wants him to do well because then they both do well. He's happier. She
Mm.
imagines he'll be happier.
Yeah.
He'll be more powerful. He'll be more active in the world. She
Mm.
wants that for him. She wants that for her. It's kind of a win-win situation. And if she's able to see that and offer him advice and he's able to take that advice, then yeah, you do have a sort of two plus or one plus one equals three. Like they're more than just the sum of their parts. They're able to generate something fertile together, metaphorically speaking, not just when it comes to children. There's sort of that energy that can build. So yeah, no, that's a really good point too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That thing you mentioned about children, I almost wonder if there's some sort of evolutionary psychology thing to this where you do literally need more resources if like a child is coming, so maybe there is something about that kind of interplay or that kind of those kinds of conversations that maybe the woman would sense would even need to happen or something, but that's pure speculation on my part.
Yeah, I mean, evolutionarily, that would make sense that there were that basic evolution, like the women who encouraged their men to greater
Mm,
things
yeah.
would have been healthier, the ones who were successful and whose men were successful, is what I
Mm,
mean, would be healthier and would have more offspring, and their children would live longer. And
mm.
so it would definitely seem to sort of reinforce itself just logistically, just looking at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Why do you think the king is wifeless here? I mean, you could say it's just part of the story that, it would make him maybe more lustful or whatever. But
Hmm.
do you think there could be anything? We don't
No,
know
I
that much
mean,
about him, but
we don't know that much about him. He's definitely limited in dimension as a character, but um, I mean, we what we do know about him is he's a real dick.
yeah,
Like he's not a kind person. He doesn't seem to care about his people or anything.
yeah,
So I'm kind of not surprised he doesn't have a wife in that regard, although historically speaking, kings didn't marry, and they didn't really have to woo somebody and convince them they were a good husband.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, he does throughout the story, he does sort of run parallel to the sharpshooter, in that the sharpshooter's working for the king at first, right? But the sharpshooter is caring and a hard worker, like we were talking. So he sort of grows, and the king ends up sort of falling. And so, if in fact, if we want to say the the having of a wife is the integrating of this sort of feminine aspect, or this intuition or whatever, through the development of good character, the king is wifeless because he
mm,
has not done that. He has not developed his character. He's selfish, he's greedy, he's inconsiderate, not even inconsiderate, he's cruel. And so the magical sorceress cannot belong to him. The sort of life-giving feminine will not come up in him. And so portraying him as wifeless in that sense both sets him up as a great foil for somebody to kidnap, to try and, kill the sharpshooter and take the wife, but then
yeah,
also emotionally, the emotional tone of him is set as sort of a foil, or a dark side to emphasize the light side of the sharpshooter, that they sort of bring out his qualities.
yeah, yeah. I think that's right. You mentioned how he's a one-dimensional character and he's just an incomplete human being, and that seems to be shown more. Yeah, he doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have this other voice or this complexity or this intuition. He is just this, like I kind of joke, he's like a walking id or something. He's just, yeah, this incomplete, and yeah, you don't want to have a ruler of a city that's like that, and he does fall. I mean,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I almost think of it like I know I've done this a lot in the past, but if like to think of the fairy tale as a whole as like a metaphor for something internal and
mm,
psychic, like if we all have this sort of tyrannical part and this
mm,
sort of like genuinely good-hearted, good-working, like, because a lot of the time the people or the parts of us that are good-working are good-hearted and hardworking, aren't necessarily ambitious. And the parts of us that are ambitious, maybe they're hardworking, but they're not good-hearted. So there's
yeah,
there's sort of, so what we would want to do as a human being, if we're developing ourselves, is to find those parts of ourselves that are good-hearted and do care, but are hardworking. Because you could be good-hearted and lazy, and then you're never gonna do
yeah,
good. So you want something that's got at least those two pieces, and then has the intuition and the ambition that the sorceress brings, and then you want to have that part kind of slowly alchemize, overcome this sort of tyrannical ruler, which
yeah,
we all have. I mean, if anything, it's just the inner child in us that's throwing a tantrum and is
mm,
unhappy,
mm,
whatever you want to call it, whatever. We all have that kind of ego id monster in us. And to kind of have the sort of good quality nature work its way up to the top and overthrow the other one, but in a way that doesn't ruin its good nature, you know?
yeah,
And we have a story right here that shows us how he does that. He follows the intuition. He sort of does whatever his wife says. He Not that you need to do whatever your wife says, but you know what I mean.
get
Don't
in
tell my
trouble
wife.
for that.
Yeah. Um, um, but he does that, and he follows the journey wherever it goes, to the point that, like, the reference, even though it's not in this particular version of it, but the reference on Wikipedia and on this Idiots and Fools podcast that I was listening to is he knows not where to find he knows not what. because he doesn't know what the Shmat-Razum is. He's just like, I gotta find it. I don't know where to. The edge of destruction, sure, sounds dangerous, very poetic. Where the fuck is that on a map? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Shmat-Razum, nobody knows what that means. I think it's probably a maybe it means something, but I like it
Mm,
in my head that it's a nonsense word.
mm,
So he's, I gotta go find the bloggity blah at the end of the world.
yeah.
So but he goes. He goes. There's a call to adventure. He says yes. Classic Joseph Campbell. He goes on the adventure wherever it leads, regardless.
Mm,
And he's smart. He pays attention to his wife slash intuition. He doesn't let anyone kind of take advantage of him. He asks for what he needs. When he gets to the palace with the daughters, he's like, "Hey, like I'm really tired. I can't answer questions right now. Can you help me out and we'll talk?" And that sort of gets him to wash his face, and that unfolds that whole part of the story. So he's not at that point. He's not so dumb. He's kind of like a little more self-aware, maybe.
mm.
I think there's some other examples of that I'm sort of forgetting off the top of my head. Um, oh yeah, so let's see. I don't want to skip too far ahead. Where did we kind of lead up to? We were up to
Kind of
the
the going to the marketplace with the tapestry.
right,
I mean,
right,
maybe
right.
even a little before that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds about right to me.
Mm,
So yeah, so I guess the thing I'm talking about is a little bit later on. But he it is funny because I mean, how often does this happen to people in everyday life that he's like he's got this good thing, he's got this wife in this case, he's got this idea, this ambition, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go do this thing. And he goes and he borrows the money and he in this case, his wife's magic assistants create the tapestry. But if we're looking at that metaphorically, like if he's an entrepreneur, he has the idea, he raises the capital, he starts the business, it gets out in the world, it does well, he earns a bunch of money, and then somebody comes along and tries to take the thing, tries to take the thing. I mean, you can talk about like a band that is doing that has this very musical or singer-songwriter, it's a very creative musician, and then he creates an album and it does really well, and then the record company's like, okay, like you got to make another one, and now he's living this lavish lifestyle and like that whole thing. So it's and he's lost that creative spark. So we see
mm,
that sort of again here with the sharpshooter where he's following it along and he's doing everything he's supposed to, and that gets him in trouble. And that all of a sudden the king comes and wants to take his wife.
mm,
And he's woeful. He goes and the king says, hey, why don't you well, we're skipping over the Baba Yaga. We can come back to her. But the king
mm,
says, why don't you go find this deer for me? And he's
mm,
like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So he goes home, really sad, and he feels kind of lost. But he goes back to his wife, and his wife is able to kind of support him through all of those things.
mm.
Whereas I think in the real world, maybe this is a pointer in the story. In the real world, if you're that musician and the record company's like sort of stealing your intuition or stealing your whatever it was that fed you creatively, or fame, even if just fame is stealing what fed you creatively, are you able to find are you able to go back to that creativity? I mean, you hear about artists that like they go to like a cabin off in the woods and
Mm.
they're there and they can just create and they're outside, they sort of remove themselves. And I feel like that's a fair metaphor, is like to turn back to the thing that took care of you rather than um continuing to just try and get more money for your tapestries or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would be going back to the beginning of the story where the sharpshooter goes back, this is what I'm elite at, going back into the woods, nature, the dark place, and being open to whatever birds you can find there.
Yeah. 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 So what did you think about the Baba Yaga?
I don't Yeah, to me she's just sort of a Mephistophelian sort of, you know, do you remember The Pearl by John Steinbeck? Um,
That's
that
going
was a
far
long
back.
time ago, but I can just sort of
Yeah,
say real
okay.
quickly, like, so a poor sort of Indian Mexican man like needs medicine for his baby. They're just he's a poor fisherman. They're doing okay, but they don't have any money, and and he gets sort of shunned by the town doctor, the sort of European descended and sort of like arrogant fat doctor, and he's sort of in a rage. He's feeling shame, and he wishes for this thing, and so he goes to the sea then, and he is given this magnificent pearl, and of course it causes all sorts of problems and everything. But I just thought of the Baba Yaga as just sort of like how she reads the mayor's mind. It's this sort of like, what can you say, this magical force of nature, like a genie, for good or for ill, usually for ill. And you could maybe say not because of what they give humanity, but because of the intention that humanity came to them with, of not trying to better their life or be open to how their life can be better, like the hero of the story. But there's a specific thing they're trying to do that is just evil. So,
Yeah, no, that's so what I'm seeing and what I'm seeing there is like the Baba Yaga becomes like the shadow of the sorcerer's wife, in that like the mayor has a problem. He goes and he wanders the back alleys,
yeah,
similar to the hunter in the forest.
yeah,
The this strange magical woman pops out of nowhere and says, "I can solve all your problems."
yeah,
But she's Baba Yaga. She's old, she's haggard, she's probably really creepy looking. She's that like typical evil witch vibe. Um, and 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 yet she's still representing this rich, uh, abundant, feminine, problem-solving nature.
mm,
But she comes across as evil, or as, because you're right, because
yeah,
the mayor is going to that part of himself
yeah,
with this ill intention.
yeah,
And so it's almost like you have a battle of the two feminine natures, the sort of the
yeah.
bright feminine, or the healthy feminine, and the evil feminine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that's cool. I had not thought of that. That's really neat. Um, yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of the Baba Yaga? Anything more? I mean,
Um, well, now with this whole new perspective, I'm sort of reassessing um what I had been thinking before, because I was thinking before of her just being sort of um the sort of stereotypical like trickster woman figure, edge of the village in the dark. I think they even say he goes and finds her in like the alleyways and
yeah,
the like the graveyards, or the refuse heaps, or something like that, some sort of a discarded place.
yeah,
And so I was just seeing her that way, as like, oh, your stereotypical like woman in the cabin in the woods. She's going to make a deal with you. Maybe it'll work out in your favor. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be exactly what you want, and then you'll hate it when you get it, which is
mm,
kind of what happens here.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, Mephistopheles definitely will play that role in, like Faust, and in other sort of the devil comes and makes you a deal,
yeah,
which makes me wonder whether the devil isn't a shadowy feminine aspect or something, or the devil isn't brought about by, in the same way we're talking about the sharpshooter versus the mayor, the devil isn't brought about by us going to something abundant in life with an evil intention. And so it bears evil fruit. And then we blame the devil for it. And we're back on projections again.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think she knows. I mean, she says clearly that the wife is very cunning, and so she there seems to be at least a professional level of respect there. Like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I heard about
yeah,
her. She's got the juice, man. I can't.
yeah,
She's gonna make it real tricky to get rid of this guy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. She knows of her. She's
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
familiar,
yeah,
if not
exactly.
intimate.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, so she gives the mayor a solution. And I think right away we see, well, it's interesting. So right away we see that the wife is clearly superior because the Baba Yaga is like, let me solve this problem. Okay, send him to the thrice beyond the thrice ninth kingdom to the 30th kingdom and find this deer on an island. He'll be
Yeah.
gone forever. Ha ha ha. Like I saw like this will get rid of him. And she's
Mm,
like, oh, okay, well, I know where the deer is. I know exactly where the deer is. There's numbers. It's very structured.
mm,
It's on an island in the 30th kingdom.
mm.
I can just go get it. I know exactly, you told me exactly where it is and exactly what I need to do. So I can just do that. Magic, like I can just bring that to me. Um, and she does. And so like clearly if the Baba Yaga really knew what this woman was capable of, she wouldn't have given her so much information that she could use to solve this particular problem that they put before her husband. Um, but she's very smart about it because she like does she do this or does the hunter do it or maybe nobody does it? But in any case, the fact that the hunter goes on the journey really sets up like it sets a trap for them, sort of. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
the king's gonna get what he wants. It's not like he shows up to the king's palace the next day and is like, hey, I'm already back. Here's
Yeah.
your deer. Now I don't have to go on the journey.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah,
so there's a little bit of trickery there. That's sort of where I see him starting to get a little smarter.
yeah. Yeah, and I think everything that has to do with the wife does have to do with this sort of cleverness with words, this negotiation. He does follow the king's orders, and the king is not this utter madman dictator on the surface. Like he still has to act like a king. So yes, everybody saw that he sent him on this voyage to get this thing, and he does that. He does his the duty to the king. So now the king can't say anything. And along the way, he sort of gives all these guys 6 years of pay, So he's kind of like helping people out, I guess, along the way, unlike the king, sort of like what we talk about with Robin Hood, with
Yes,
like
just gonna say, yeah.
the the foil of the leader doing what the leader is supposed to be doing, and but still like going along with things. And although Robin Hood's maybe different, but I think there's always some sort of like turning of words around, this some sort of cleverness with like dealing with contracts and negotiations and stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah, because you see the sharpshooter being hardworking. He's doing what's asked of him. He's fulfilling his contracts.
yeah,
He's not lying, he's not cheating, he's like, okay, you want me to do this? I'll do this, but I'll do this better than you think I'm going to be able to.
yeah,
And you're right that he also like takes care of these sailors who the king was just going to let drown because they were all expecting the ship to sink. And he was like, all right, well, find these worthless guys and send them off on this worthless ship, and then everybody's going to die, and I'll get what I want. And
yeah,
instead of dying, they're rewarded with it's like a 5-day cruise of all you can drink, and then
yeah,
6 years off when you're home.
yeah.
These guys
And
got
no
it
one can
made.
say anything.
Exactly. Exactly. All because the sharpshooter like went along with the plan, but was not taken by it. Like he went and did his own thing with the setup that of the king's plan.
Yeah,
Thanks to the wisdom of his wife,
yeah,
of the sorceress. So so then I think um you see the mayor go back to Baba Yaga, and Baba Yaga wises up. So she doesn't say like go to this specific kingdom and get this specific thing. She's like, okay, now we're going to send you off to somewhere you can't find, the edge of destruction, and you have to find something there that like nobody knows what it is. So she really like ups the ante there, and she does essentially she outmaneuvers the wife because
yeah,
he's sent on the journey. He has to go. There's no way for them. The wife cannot find the information that she needs. It's like outside of her Google search. She can't call it up, you know? And so she can't block that particular attack
mm,
against the sharpshooter, but she can advise him to go and ask for money, which he does. She can give him the gifts of the ball that will guide him and the towel that will announce his identity. Because I'm sure she knows where the ball is going to bring him.
Yeah.
So you have this like it's almost like the personal feminine intuition is not able to do it, and so he has to go out wandering into the world, but his wandering by following the golden ball, which is sort of a stand-in for intuition. It's just going to go wherever it goes, but it takes care of him when he needs a bed. It turns into a bed. When he needs a bridge,
Mm.
it turns into a bridge. So
Mm.
it's very like it's an all-purpose item. It's very
Mm.
typical in fairy tales and stuff.
Mm.
But it ultimately leads him to what I see. Like if we're talking about the wife as like the feminine nature of the sharpshooter, then her mother would be sort of like feminine nature in general, like the feminine, like the goddess or something like that, the divine feminine,
Mm.
the essence of what it means to be feminine.
Mm.
And ties right into what you were saying before about her being like Diana or the goddess of nature or something like
Mm.
that. Like she's the mother of this magical woman. And so she sort of metaphorically, she's the source of the metaphorical magic that's in the sky that he's managed to contact
Mm.
by marrying this woman as a
Mm.
metaphor. He's able to sort of bring that into himself. So then he goes out and he finds the source of that, where like so his wife is described as this most beautiful, amazing woman. You can't even talk about her, only in tales. Couldn't even describe her. Everyone's madly in love with her. He follows his ball. He ends up at a castle. There's three beautiful women and their mother. Like she's held up as this very rare thing, and he ends up in a castle where there's like at least four of them because there's the three sisters and the wife.
Mm.
And then there's the sort of source, the mother that they all came from. So
Mm.
it's a very like the thing that comes to mind for me is like, the Grail myth or the Grail castle, but the Grail, that's not a feminine thing. The Grail is kind of a feminine thing, the Grail itself, but the Grail is wielded by a king, and so it's a different story. I think
Mm.
there's another one you did with your friend Lisette was the Water of Life. And I
Mm.
think there you have a hero that goes to a castle where there's some sort of font of something,
Yeah.
source of something ultimately healing.
Yeah.
Um, and and it's interesting because, well, I guess do you have anything to say to that? Because that's I've been talking for a bit.
Oh no, no, no. That yeah, that was all good. I was thinking just yeah, you could yeah, sort of intuition or the source of the feminine. I was also thinking he follows the ball for a long way. It's sort of like going deeper. You could say it's sort of going deeper and deeper into your thoughts in the right way, right concentration eventually, and maybe coming to some sort of insight, this
Mm.
realization or something that could be a greater source for new ideas or something like that. Although for me, I think of it as his wife and the family is sort of yeah representing nature in general, and so there's a renewal, change, growth, which is of course yeah related to intuition anyway. But
Yeah. And as we have said, like meeting her has sort of started his process of growth. So
yeah,
that's another that ties into that as well.
yeah,
Um, and yet, despite all of that, um, this magical source of all the feminine nature in the world, or whatever you want to call it, uh, this goddess Diana, she doesn't know about the Shmat-Razum either. She's
yeah,
never heard of it.
right,
And she has power over all of these beasts and all of these fishes, all the creatures of the earth. None of them know. So it's
yeah,
almost,
yeah,
of course, but like almost all of them don't know, and so it heightens the mystery of it. Like if she's held up as this like, okay, the sharpshooter gets the magic introduced into his life, is sort of grown to the wife. They go through their trials. Something bad kind of happens. He overcomes that. He continues past a few other stages. He gets to this sort of the mother-in-law in this case representing like the source of the divine feminine, like I'm saying, and even that can't solve it. So then where do you go to like the very lowest thing ever. You go to
yeah,
the old frog who's seen 30 years of service. Who knows what kind of service a frog is doing, but the frog is doing some kind of a service. But the frog can't hop anywhere. And
Yeah.
like, but the frog is always such an interesting thing because it's always it's between two worlds. It's
Yeah.
it can go, it can come in the water on earth on the land. It's kind of gross. It's not pleasant. Frogs and fairy tales are almost always ew. Something gross about them.
Yeah.
The princess, the frog, the princess with the golden ball, like is disgusted by the frog that rescues the ball for her.
Yeah.
So frogs are always this like very low thing. I think in Frogs and Toads. I think in Carl Jung's Red Book, he has a picture of like this little parasitic looking worm and like a toad sitting at the base of a tree, and it's sort of this symbol for like the sort of the gross material that needs to be
Mm.
brought into the alchemical process and transluted or something. But here you have the frog as the only being in the entire world who can help our hero actually do what he's been asked to do.
Mm.
And and the frog is richly rewarded for that. But the frog is placed in a bowl of milk. Um, and I don't think frogs like milk, so I doubt that that's a logical thing. But I think of it as like the milk being nourishment,
Yeah,
and
that's what I
so
thought of.
like this gross little ignored old kind of broken down thing is put into a container with nourishment and is like able to stay there. So it's taken care of. So again, we have sort of the hero's not doing it, but we have the case of something little and kind of helpless being cared for, and that resulting in him finding the way forward.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's caring for something. He himself is almost like a mother at that point, going forward in the story to the end of the earth. I did think of how so he follows a ball a really long way. Eventually he goes to a water place and finds a frog that leads eventually to his political sort of transformation at the end of the story. I mean, that does remind me of, I forgot what Grimm's Brothers story it is, but this little girl is like always likes to play with this ball, and
hmm,
eventually, and she's playing by the edge of a pond, and she drops it and it falls in, and a frog comes and brings it back up to her. So it does seem like there's this ball goes somewhere that you didn't know where, you didn't necessarily want to go there to water, and then there's a frog at the end, and that's how the story goes forward. So
hmm, yeah, I hadn't seen the hadn't realized the ball was in both of them, and the especially back in when these tales were being told, I can imagine a ball being something that's sort of got the feel of chaos to it,
mm,
in that like not a lot of things were perfectly round.
mm.
And a ball is generally fairly round, and when you like it'll bounce all over the place is my point. Like who knows, it's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
roll, it's going to roll down, you're going to like find it down the street. Like it doesn't stay in one place. It's
Mm,
constantly moving. It's got this perfect nature to it, but it's
mm.
constantly moving. You can't pin it down. And so sort of following the ball can be very um or losing the ball also could be like being drawn away into something. Like, oh, my thing went somewhere unknown. I know not where, for I know not why. Um, so yeah. The ball is a stronger symbol than I was thinking of what this sharpshooter is doing on a non-metaphorical level. He's following something very crazy that's just going, he doesn't even know where. And
Yeah,
the amount of faith required for us to do that in our own life is pretty immense. It's pretty scary. If you think of doing that in your own life, of like, okay, I'm gonna follow something that doesn't make any sense but feels right to me wherever it goes, and who knows where it's going. I don't even have any idea where it's going,
yeah,
you know. Um, it's a scary thing to do that. So,
yeah. and maybe the beginning of that journey is often a known part. Like I was thinking of the little girl in the story I just mentioned, where she's always playing with the ball, and there's a playful aspect, obviously, too, and childlike and whatnot. But yeah, you think you're doing one thing and you have certain intent and everything, but then yeah, chaos comes in after that and sort of throws you for a loop, and then that's where a real adventure begins, and that's where real change begins and everything. Oh
Yeah. 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 Even if you throw the frog against the wall and you kill it. If
yeah,
I'm remembering that story correctly,
she
it's been a
does, yeah.
while. Yeah. Cool,
Or
cool.
I mean, but trying to, but then yeah, which else? And then he becomes a prince. But yeah, he, yeah, she's very much reluctant to to go to the next part of the story. Maybe it's something like that. It's something about maybe how we're reluctant to even grow up, or just the unknown, the
Hmm.
next thing. We're not necessarily always eager to go to that.
Yeah. And I think that ties right back into this because where he's going is the edge of destruction,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that I can imagine following something unknown to something even that just feels like the edge of destruction would be
yeah,
terrifying. Because like what if I don't know what if this is wrong? What if I made this up? What if I'm not following what if there's something wrong with the ball? How do I know it's leading me to the right place?
yeah,
But it leads him to what, like a giant wall of fire,
yeah,
which is pretty edge of destruction in my book. You can't
yeah,
really get past that unless you have a giant frog.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have something that, has a lot of experience with going between worlds.
Mm.
And that you and
Yeah.
it's kind of ridiculous to have faith in on the surface.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what is
Exactly.
that, like Frodo or something? Frodo is the weakest kind of guy, is the one that's going to save the world. I mean,
Yeah. The little hobbit. Um, little hobbit, the little frog. Yeah. Oh man. And they both go to a place with a lot of fire. Um, but yeah, so the frog kind of at that point, once the frog, um, yeah, because you have, in fact, you can even go before the frog. You have the woman being the guide, the wife being the guide, and then she has to go, but she gives him the ball, and then the ball guides him to a certain point, and then the ball can't guide him anymore.
yeah.
But then he finds help there, and that so the same figure sort of transforms from a wife to a ball to a frog.
Yeah.
And the frog is then able to just be like, yeah, we here, go this way. Okay, now sit on my back. This thing that's an impassable barrier, I can just jump over it. Okay, I'm gonna hang out here. You go to that cave. You watch the old men. There's going to be two old men. Watch what they do what they do, and you'll get what you're here for. And the frog just knows these things.
Yeah. The man, when he rides the frog over the river of fire, he does have to be careful. Like he could fall off. It's very slippery. I mean, there's probably something about that, about the balance, the subtleness and balance you have to have in certain very risky situations or something. You can hardly afford to make a misstep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's definitely a common theme of the like I think one thing one other version of it that I can think of is like the bridge that's the edge of a sword. Like you have to walk across it and it cuts you, but you just have to stay quick and sharp to get across without
Oh,
losing
wow.
your feet. I think that's a Lancelot story if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
Um, in any case, it's part of the Arthurian stories. But yeah, just that challenge of attention, of not letting your attention um get distracted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing that sort of gets him over the final barrier into the cave with the two old men, which like I don't know, I have in my head this like very surreal thing with like, because it's these two old men who live on the other side of the wall of fire at the end of the world, at the edge of destruction, and they go into a cave that's completely dark, and they have an invisible servant make them food, and then they leave. And it's very dreamlike. Like it's not very grounded. That's like the most, which makes sense for where we are at in the story, this sort of center or the edge of destruction, the sort of outer edges of the universe. Is this some very strange things going on there?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's kind of pointless or something. It's like and they've been doing this for a really long time and yeah, I mean, do they need nourishment? I mean, yeah, is everything just mechanical and dead there or something? There's no love there. I mean, there's
yeah,
no point.
it feels like I want to say like cosmic or something. Like it's just an orbit. Like it just
Yeah,
happens. It's just sort of that kind of mechanical nature of behavior. Yeah.
that sounds right to me. Yeah, not quite dead. It was never alive. It's just this thing that's going.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And into that place he brings care. He brings, you know, and that's the thing that sort of unsticks the power, the magical power. Um, and it comes with him. And now, for the first time in the story, he's the one with the magic power. And granted, it's his servant, but like he wasn't commanding his wife. He wasn't commanding his mother-in-law. He wasn't commanding the frog. Now he's reached either the edge or the center, whatever you want to call it, in this weird cosmic mechanical place. He's touched something, some power there, and he's been able to, through his care and through his humanity, he's able to bring it back with him. So you have the sort of hero's journey of going to the place and then coming back with the treasure. And his secret power, his superpower is like being nice,
Yeah,
which is a good
yeah,
superpower to have if you have one,
yeah. And
Yeah.
just in the world of, we with the king and everything, we are in the world of and in the marketplace, we're in the world of politicking or getting along with other people and he's respectful. He knows how to talk to people. He doesn't abuse his power. And so he's the one that gets power
Hmm.
ultimately, and the other ones are the ones that lose it or just abusing it for their own sort of lascivious sort of purposes.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and even the old men, they're not really abusing the servant, but they're not seeming to care. They're just like, yeah, just do the thing. Bring us the food. Now put it away. Thank you. It's like going to a restaurant and not tipping the wait staff.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
That
not
kind of
abusing him, but they're not appreciating him or something. They're not bringing anything to the table, so to speak. Like they're not, and and our hero is, he's shows a little care, has a brings a little bit of life to it.
yeah.
I mean,
And I think he says, come sit with me, like it's lonely for me to eat alone. So he's not even like,
he
oh, well, you
saves his
must be
spot.
hungry, like come in. He's like,
Yeah.
no, like I come on, I'm bored, like come hang out with me, like come
Yeah,
have a
he's
good
not
time.
condescending about it. He's not like lording it over like yeah, he's giving it an excuse to feel like an equal. It's,
Yeah. Yeah, gives it that sort of belonging, that sort of respect, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that shows the sort of his social intuition or social skills, that he has. And
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, being able to just sort of meet someone on that level. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
there's his growth and everything.
Yeah. Although it's great that you said that because he goes back and he like gets on the frog, goes over the fire, goes back to the castle, throws a big party. Mother-in-law is very pleased. And then he starts walking home. So he's still got a little like there's this little moment of like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And then there's this reveal of like, oh no, you have this magical servant that will do things for you. And you can say, you should have told me sooner, master. I can fly. you've lost your hat. Too bad. By the time you realize you lost your hat, it's been 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
Just forget your hat. We'll get you another hat. And um, I think that's seems to me to be kind of the last place where the the sharpshooter is ignorant, if I remember. Because from there on, he's still advised on what to do by the servant or by whomever, but I don't think he has another moment of like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. He he meets the merchants. He knows that he's swindling them. He's consciously swindles them. He has the servant working on his behalf and finding things that he needs. So it's no longer like it's funny, it's no longer something that's the magic is no longer something that's in his wife. It's sort of something closer. It's something that's become his. And he's able to wield it himself. So he he gets these three treasures, this castle on an island in the middle of the ocean. Very like imagine being these merchants and be like, must have been a great wizard in this castle, and they took all of our magic, all our magic tricks. We've been swindled by this great wizard. Little do they know he's just some sharpshooter guy who's like stumbled upon a basically a genie.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess I wondered, I don't know. What did you think about that part where the his servant gets him to get all those things? It wasn't it his servant's uh Shamat-Razum, whatever his name is, it was his idea in the first place to set up the island in the middle of the sea, right? And then he's told him, yeah, there will be three merchants that come along. That also reminded me of how his wife sort of had the ideas in the beginning to to change his profession basically, or to sell the tapestry and everything. It's maybe again this idea of the intuition, kind of getting new ideas and everything. There's association with water there too.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, what
mhm.
did you think of that? I guess from the merchants, he gets the magical gifts that he needs to overcome the king's hereditary power. I mean, I guess that's what's kind of going on there.
Yeah, and I mean, you see him. This is sort of his sort of return to the marketplace, right? Is he's dealing with merchants, he's dealing with shipping.
Mhm.
They're on some sort of merchant journey, I imagine.
Yeah.
And so he sort of left all of that when he left with the ball. He sort of I think it even describes him going beyond the barrier. So there's sort of this very clear demarcation of going into the other world, into the magical land, the unconscious, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And here we have him going over a sea. So that's already sort of a liminal space with the water.
Mm.
Like you were saying, the water's there. It's kind of in between, but he's sort of coming back to the world of merchants, the world of trying to sell the tapestry, the world of kings and mayors, and the first thing he does is he doesn't his magic wields him kind of, but he uses through magic means he attains, like you said, the powers that he needs to overcome the king and um, protect him and his wife, protect his relationship from this, egoistic pile of id
Yeah.
that is the king. And so there's sort of this sense that like the merchants weren't going to do anything good with that stuff anyway. Maybe. I mean, they have the feast. They all get drunk and they pass out. They don't mention anything about them inviting the invisible servant to eat with them or anything.
Mm.
And then in the morning they wake up and they want to get drunk again to kind of chase off the hangover. So there's at least a little bit of a painting of them as
They're not
uh,
particularly noble, and how did they get those magical things? Maybe they swindled someone else out of them or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a all merchants are evil kind of a thing, but
Hmm.
we don't see them being good in any way, and they are duped by the hero in that he's like, "Oh yeah, well I'm just gonna take all three," and they're like, "Well, I guess that's what we got to do." I don't know. So there he's the one kind of setting the rules, and the other people are just sort of following along. So
Yeah.
you sort of see his role getting reversed there.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then what? Then he goes home and he meets his wife, who's been living as a dove in the forest for however many years. I mean, they're not very. It's supposed to be an 18-year journey, so maybe it's 18 years. Although they're still both described as young, so uh, time is a little wibbly wobbly.
Mm.
Um, but but yeah, and then he doesn't even attack the king, right? Even down to the very end of the
Yeah.
story, he's like, I've got this palace because I can have a palace now, and I've got these gardens because I can have a garden, and I've got these this navy and this army because I can do that. I have been able to raise these things from the world for myself, and I want to live here with my wife. And you're going to attack me? Well, too bad, buddy. Like that's on you.
Yeah, I thought of that as we talked about him as always doing the proper thing. And the proper thing when you're ignorant is to kind of go with what seems like the most likely thing. Someone wiser tells you what to do. And as you were pointing out, he goes, that's what he does in the first parts of the story, and then increasingly kind of gains agency later on in the story. But he's always still doing the proper thing, right? So the king is rapacious and lustful, but he's not. I don't know. He not deserving of rebellion or something, maybe. Or anyway, it seems like smarter to politically to let the king be the attacker and then to destroy him rather than to go do that. And then yes, the people have all recognized his legitimacy as a person and as a ruler,
Hmm.
and his wife's with over their king. So
Yeah. And actually, that reminds me. I was curious. Excuse me. I was curious. There's they say they want him to be the king, and they want the wife to be the queen. I'm like, oh, king and queen. And then I remembered that when we're first introduced to the sorcerer's wife, she says, "I'm the daughter of a king,"
that's right. That's right.
and
Yeah.
and yet when he goes to her home, he meets the mother. He does like the king who she is the daughter of is conspicuously absent, even though she
Yeah.
is raised to queenship by the end of the story, as would befit a princess.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think the king's gone? I don't know.
You're not you're not thinking that her dad is the king of this realm, and there's some kind of weird thing where she had escaped
No,
him or something. And
no. I'm thinking more like to go back to what I was saying earlier about her mother is sort of this goddess or this divine feminine. Like the husband of the goddess would be God or a god or the divine masculine or something like that.
I see.
And he is not present. The hero shows up at the castle at the edge of the world. The hero shows up at the place where divinity or the magic comes from. Nature is ensouled as this mother-in-law woman, like you were
Yeah.
saying, Diana. He comes to this place where these archetypes are made real,
Yeah.
and yet she's the wife is described as the daughter of a king,
Yeah.
but she's shown as the daughter of a very powerful sorceress who
Yeah.
commands these two giants compared to her daughter who
Yeah.
commands the two youths. So
Yeah.
you can, she's shown to be this very powerful magical woman with four daughters. One assumes there's a husband. She's the daughter of the king. There must be a king. and yet we're never introduced to the king.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's very good. Yes, yeah, yeah, the god is the husband or the sky or whatever. Yeah, yeah, the fact that he's absent. Yeah, I had only thought that that sort of just seemed like he wasn't present, but it's more like he's omnipresent or something. He's a very an all-powerful force. He's a little bit like God and Mary and whatnot. Almost a immaculate conception. I don't know, or
yeah, no, I
that's
see
not
what
the
you mean,
right
that
word,
it's
but
it's sort of a his absence does make him sort of all pervasive in
yeah.
that if you realize that he's missing, it's like, oh, well, where is he? Well, he's kind of everywhere. He's kind of everywhere. He's kind of I don't know, the raising of the sharpshooter to kingship feels like the closest thing to the presence of some sort of divine masculine. You get this good-hearted man brought into power. That not to say that he becomes a god, but it is to say that the role of the powerful masculine, or the magical masculine, or whatever it is that this sort of divine thing would represent. I mean, it turned, if we are talking Christian symbology, like the Father and the Son, the way that God and
Mm,
Christ relates, like you have this sort of missing king, and then you have the sharpshooter sort of filling the role as the representative of the masculine within the story, within the realm of Earth.
on, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that I wanted to ask you that if you thought this whole thing was fated. And I wanted to even think of bringing in
Mm.
other things like the tapestry itself. I thought it's interesting that it's like basically their whole little world on it in all intricate detail. And I can see how that would be, she would know in this beautiful silk gathered from the body of the people. It's this sort of, so on the one hand, it could be this beautiful and heartfelt offering of a people to the beloved King, but instead it's this weird mirror. It's this weird distorted mirror image of that because the mayor, and then him look on it just lustfully, and it sort of instead of showing the love of the people for the king and the therefore the quality of the king reflecting back in this gift, it brings out his meanness, his lowness of character and his one dimensionality and all that stuff. But I don't know if I'd have encountered that image before. It's got to be in some horror movie somewhere, something of the whole world or your whole little world reflected in this little beautiful, hauntingly beautiful, eerie kind of thing, and
Hmm.
you could see how that could be like some sort of magical item that brings out the inherent evil in a character or something.
Yeah, yeah. It has me think of there's a story by Borges. I can never quite
Jorge
pronounce his name right.
Luis.
Yeah, Jorge Luis
Mm,
Borges.
yeah.
Where I think he sets it in China. So there's an emperor, but the ruler wants to create a map of his land. Um, and they do, and then he wants it to be bigger because there's not enough detail, and he wants it to be bigger because there's not enough detail. And eventually they create a map that is the size of the land, and like the land gets, I forget the end of the story, like the land gets lost, or the narrator is now wondering whether he's wandering through the land or the map, and he's not quite certain.
Yeah.
And I take that story to mean sort of the conceptual overlay that we put on reality, and how we can get
Yeah.
lost in that, which is, I mean, it's the
Yeah.
Matrix. It's the like,
Yeah.
oh no, this is real. It's just these concepts we have, and we need to see what's really there. Plato's cave, same kind of a
Yeah.
thing, right? The
Yeah.
shadows on the wall being the map. Well,
Yeah.
the woman presents a perfect map in miniature as a tapestry, and it's like a in and of itself, it's a magical feat because you cannot,
Mm.
as the Borges story shows, you can't really, you would have to create something to map all of the details perfectly, you would have to
Yeah.
create something that was exactly the same size as the thing you're trying to map.
Yeah.
But she manages to do it in miniature, and that's inherently a magical act. It's a
Right.
crystal
Yeah.
ball. It
It's
shows you
impossible.
everything, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I hadn't even thought of that. I was just like, oh yeah, she makes a pretty thing. You know, entrepreneurial, like you were saying. Like I sort of had
Yeah.
that of like, oh, she makes a thing for him, but the symbol of the thing she makes is neat and definitely has that like eerie quality of surreal. And now in my head, I'm seeing it being a tapestry where like the little people are moving around, and it's
I
like,
was thinking that too. Yeah, and or you could think, are they moving or not? And you go insane like trying to figure it out. And yeah, it's like I think it's changing. It's you look out your window, and it's like the same thing of the same of the corresponding part on the tapestry, and then now they're looking at you in both of them, and but I'm turning it too much into like a silly horror movie, but
I mean, it's pretty creepy. It's a nice image. Like it's well crafted. Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have anything else to say on that, but
to me
I want
there's
to because it's nice. It's juicy, you
yeah,
know?
I like that image a lot. I want to take that image with me more. And I think that's what the king wants to do. Do you not feel that this is kind of like a consumption of his people? He's trying to, he's lusting after not only one of his subjects, but his beloved subject, who is a beloved servant who is a very, very useful and good person, very, and and he just wants to take the consume from the guy
Mm-hmm.
and justify it. Of course, she's a queen. Of course, there's an irony there where he real, but yeah, I thought his consuming with his eyes this image of the kingdom is, and all the little details, all the people in it and everything, is this sort of like showing his rapaciousness as a ruler.
Yeah, yeah, and for him to just be like, okay, well, here's $10,000 or
That's
whatever it
right.
was.
He
Uh,
takes it.
He takes it and he puts it up and he's like, okay, it's mine now. I've
Yeah.
paid for it. Like there's no, it's consumptive. It's
Yeah.
it's it's objectifying. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no appreciation of the craftsmanship.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about that in terms of consuming. It's not an appreciation. It's not a love. And that seems to be brought uh, more clearly to you in that they never ask a price for it. So that you could say it's, in a way, it's invaluable. And those who put a price on it, in a way, are always devaluing it, or not valuing it enough. And yeah, you'd almost think, I mean, this is a beautiful, invaluable gift, and they would have to bring something like the merchants later on, where they'd have to bring the most valuable thing to try to give to him. Not like they do give a lot of money for it, but it's only a lot of money to the sharpshooter who doesn't have much money. To them, it's not much. They give nothing. I'm
Hmm.
sort of
Hmm.
almost thinking of like the Jesus parable about the the old widow who like only gives one coin or something, but she gives more than everybody else because she gives you know not out of her extra, but from you know she 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 doesn't have much,
Yeah,
but
yeah. She
they
gives such a percentage of what she has. Yeah,
mm,
yeah, yeah. The king, the king's described as pulling the money out of his pocket. So it's basically
oh
pocket
really,
change.
oh
Yeah,
man,
yeah. If I remember correctly. So yeah, it is very like it's interesting. It's almost like for sure, I think when you bring something magical into the realm of numbers and counting and money and specific like what's the price, um it can lose its magic, just sort of that's fairy tale logic when you bring something from the other realm into this realm, it fades
yeah,
and
yeah, right,
him not setting a price for it sets up like and him forcing the buyer to set a price for it in this case sets up like a bidding war. Like
Yeah.
the magical thing creates magic in the mundane marketplace
Right. Yeah.
because he is not the one. He doesn't bring the magic down to the level of the marketplace. He brings the magic and then says, "Marketplace, meet this magic," and the marketplace has to expand to come and meet where the magical thing is coming from.
Yeah. And they're not
Yeah.
able to. And then
Yeah.
the political is brought in. And
hmm
then, but instead of trying to maybe value it properly, sort of like, I don't know, you can say with politics and spirituality or something like that, there's got to be some kind of intersection where you're appropriately reverent, and you're not trying to place your system of values on that thing. You know that it's a little bit better than you, and everything. But yeah, and then the political has to be brought in, and then you get all kinds of machinations, and you get the sort of evil or id or whatever at the heart of that shows it up to not be worthy of the role it's playing, of the realm that it's into.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah. And it's mirrored. You see the same thing in the king wanting to. I mean, the wife even calls him out on it of like, how are you gonna marry somebody who's married already? Like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about social contract. He doesn't care about what's right and what's wrong. He doesn't care about anything. He just wants a thing and he takes it. Um,
yeah.
and it ends poorly for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I brought all this up with the tapestry. If you still have energy or
Yeah.
time to,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wondered if from the beginning, if this was like fate. This whole thing was
Oh
fate. From the sharpshooter who's like the best shooter in the land. He doesn't quite hit the bird. Of course, it's hard to hit birds and everything, so maybe you could talk about that. But I wondered if that it was fate to hit that particular bird and only on the wing to not kill it, and then like it gives him the opportunity, and then slowly his contact with her builds his whole life to where he goes into the deepest darkest places to the end of the world, brings things back, eventually gets rid of the king and ascends to the kingship. It's sort of like you wonder if this was somehow the from the depths of nature, the the illegitimacy of the king brought this whatever this force forward,
hmm
and that destroyed him. And you could even talk about how this is like the mind of the tyrant or something like that, the uh, who eventually will get something to bring about his downfall just because, yeah, he's not serving the people, he's not a good ruler. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of stories where the the Mad King or the Bad King is brought to ruin through fate or other such things. But I had not really thought of it because I was so focused on this being a hero story. I didn't really think of it from the point of view of like the people and the land, the sort of the kingdom, the state of
Mm,
the kingdom, the state of
mm,
the um and it is kind of I mean it is a kingdom that has fallen into like the wasteland. It is
mm,
it is a ruined kingdom. It's
mm,
ruled by an illegitimate king. It's ruled by somebody who has no appreciation of what authority is. Like we've talked about in all the Robin Hood things, that sort of the illegitimate ruler.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and those kind of things do bring about a their own destruction. Eventually, it always happens. And so yeah, here it could be like um, you could retell this whole story from the point of view of like the sorceress wife's father, the true king, the
mm,
divine king, of him
mm,
being like, well, there's this evil king, and I have to. What are we going to do? And how are we going to stop him? And well, look, daughter, there's this good-hearted, hardworking hunter down there. I bet we could make a king out of him if we like trained him the right way. Do you think you're up for it? And she's like, yeah, sure. He's very handsome. I'm madly in love with him because it's a fairy tale, right?
Hmm.
That's how that works. And so she goes down with as part of this whole plan to like bring bring the life force back, make the ruler make the ruler of the land noble again, truly noble,
Mm.
and reinvigorate the kingdom in that sense. So it's no longer the wasteland. It comes back to life and it's whole again, which
Yeah.
is the same story that I was talking about if you look at it from a psychological perspective of when our own lives are ruled by these
Yeah.
rapacious, uncaring parts, these egoic, narcissistic parts, um, our lives fall into a wasteland. And
Yeah.
the way we rescue ourselves from that is by finding or developing these hardworking parts in us and having them start to lead us on a journey of growth to the point where that part of us becomes in control of our life more
Yeah.
so than the selfish, narcissistic, I'm sure very anxious, greedy,
Yeah. That the
unhappy, the
tyrant
unhappy
in
part
you.
of us, the tyrant. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the word. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, the bad, unhappy, but still wanting to control everything, not understanding anything, and no reason to it, but yeah, just for control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that the sharpshooter works like he doesn't confront the king. He doesn't try and overthrow. It's not like the wife shows up and is like, "Okay, sharpshooter, like your king's really evil and you got to rise up a rebellion and you got to overthrow
Yeah,
him and you got."
yeah,
And she just like leads step and there you have the feeling of it being fated because it each like the king it's the king's actions that damn him.
yeah,
It's him trying to take the wife. If he hadn't done that, nothing, if he hadn't been rapacious, he might have been a good enough king that wouldn't have needed to happen. Fate wouldn't have needed to step in.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he wouldn't have triggered it by trying to take the wife and kill the sharpshooter. And by doing that, he sort of triggers his own downfall.
yeah. Yeah, and yeah, that it seems proper the way the wife and sharpshooter combination bring about the downfall of the tyrant, even thinking of it in terms of the psyche. Yeah, if you just have too much inner conflict that's sort of like destabilizing the whole thing, it's good to sort of work on your practices, your meditation, prayer, kindness, uh, work on work on your aim and your skill with you know and it's very important that he is a sharpshooter, right? It is a part that sees clearly, can aim, and can fulfill the mission, can fulfill the little tasks every day. Go out there every day, meditate or whatever it is, and
Hmm.
start and and you're seeing clearly, and that part will slowly start to through just innumerable and hard to say beforehand what kinds of Byzantine paths you will take for many years, and eventually that will bring about the tyrant will have to do something and react. The reactive mind or something will have to try to force control. But the problem is it's not strong anymore, and it will, and then it gives in, and then I don't know, you have growth or you have insight or you have awakening from that or something like that. But yeah, the thing is not to try to force it and like try to grit your teeth and just power through and act how you're supposed to act or something like that, but to have it be more of a natural kind of, and that brings me more, yeah, the fate, the idea of this story is always about the natural and through a little bit softer and always clever way and at the proper time doing the right things to
Hmm.
eventually, yeah, lead to the proper rulership. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really good because it like I see the like if we are talking about this as an inner psychological process, the if you confront the parts of yourself that are problematic, that are narcissistic, that are angry, that are rapacious, that are if you fight them, um, they grow stronger. Usually, that's usually if you try and like overpower them, eventually your willpower will fade and they will overtake you. I mean, we've talked about the cake in the
Yeah.
refrigerator a number of
Yeah.
times, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas if you and well, I have my reasons for I think why they how do I say that? I have reasons why I think that's the case, and I'll get into them in a minute.
Mm.
But the first thing I want to say is that the what the hero does here is, and like you were saying, he builds his own strength through like metaphorically the practice over time that builds strength and it builds strength and it builds power. And what I think happens on a psychological level is once this more adult capable part of us is powerful and feels safe in the world and can
Mm.
generate the experience of safety and not control, but safety and belonging of like, okay, I know how to be in this place. I know how
Mm.
to function like this is good, this is okay.
Mm.
Then
Confidence. Mm.
confidence. Then the parts that are evil, the rapacious, the
Mm.
all of those things, it's my personal belief, all of those things are parts that develop during childhood that got splintered off and they will
Mm.
come in and they'll take over our personality from time to time.
Mm.
But they're they're ultimately the king is evil in this story. But when it
Mm.
comes to us, like these parts that cause us all these trouble, they're not evil. They're trying to protect us. They're trying to
Mm.
keep us safe. They just don't know how to do it. They're
Mm.
not they're acting in an adult world from a childlike perspective,
Mm.
and they don't understand what's actually going on. So building up that adult perspective to the point where it's powerful enough that it can go to the child part and say, "Hey, you don't need to do this anymore. You
Mm.
can put your burden on me. I can carry it much better than you ever can."
Mm.
Then those parts will just relax and they'll fade. They'll integrate themselves back into the main personality, like
Mm.
and you're sort of you unify yourself instead of having all these different things sort of tearing you in different directions.
Mm.
Um, which I had not thought of here because the king is such a jerk, but I think the parallels you're drawing make it pretty clear that the fatedness, the good-natured thing overcoming the problematic thing, like and how it goes about it step by step. I think that's really spot on. That's really cool.
Yeah, I liked yeah, he basically goes almost everywhere in the world. You know, it's like you explore every sort of thing. You have all sort of different experiences. Maybe you talk with all sorts of different people, have experience of different forces.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that the king he has like no contact with his kingdom except through his sort of dumb mare except and that but there's two times when he does have contact with others and
Mhm.
that's when he goes off to the seashore, so I imagine him living in a sort of hit mountain area or something. Anyway, he's in a high place, right? Because he's in the castle, looking
Mhm.
down on his people and everything, and they're bringing up the gift to him and the tapestry, and the mayor is bringing up information to him, and he's kind of scheming. And then yeah, so he goes down to the seashore to see off this ill-fated voyage that he thinks going to solve all his problems and get rid of a bunch of people that he doesn't want in his kingdom anyway. And maybe those are sort of detritus of like previous wars or something, or like veterans or useful people that have like become useless through maybe having no purpose or something like that.
Yeah. PTSD if they're
Yeah.
veterans. Yeah.
Yeah. Or and maybe just a general like malaise in the kingdom, like people are sort of drunk. They don't have feeling of purpose. They know the king's not really anything what to feel motivated about or to feel any sort of inspiration for. He's not a leader. He's just there. He's rapacious. He's.
Yeah. Everybody knows all the kings are fools.
Mm.
They're just greedy. You know, it's that
Mm.
like it's this tale people tell themselves when they're under bad leadership that, well, it's
Mm.
always this way and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
bullshit, but I understand.
Mm.
you know. Um, I don't know. Did you have something else to say, or
Oh,
I have a response to the
oh,
king
okay.
going down to the ocean and stuff, but I don't want to cut you off.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking that the only time it seems that he makes contact with others where he goes out of his sort of his tower or whatever is yeah, when he sees off that ill-fated voyage, and the other time is when he goes down to try to destroy the the palace that's better than his now, and you know that he didn't give leave to the sharpshooter to build and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Um, because I was thinking we may both be right. I think we're both right. Let's just say we are. I don't need to go back to the text. But I was thinking he goes down to see off the ship, and he goes down when the ship comes back, if I
Yeah, I
remember
think that's
correctly.
right. That's right.
And then
Yeah.
he goes down a third time at the end where he's destroyed.
Yeah, those three times. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy because I don't know, it's crazy, but it's interesting. He if those are the three times where he leaves his castle and he comes down to be amongst his people, as the king amongst the people, like the reason he does it the first time is I imagine he's setting it up so when the sharpshooter doesn't return, he can graciously marry his wife and be like, "Oh, our hero who is lost on this quest has left aside this poor bereft widow. I will take her as my wife." And so he's like scheming there, right? The second time he comes down, he's super angry that his scheme didn't work out. And he's like, "How dare you come back? You can't possibly have gotten the deer with the golden horns. I'm going to cut your head off." So he comes down greedy, he comes down angry, and then he comes down kind of angry again, but he comes down to destroy at the end of just like, this is done. I'm going to wipe out this castle. He doesn't know what he's doing. He can't, so he's suddenly threatened.
Yeah.
He's not, the first time he comes down angry, he's not threatened. Second time he comes down angry, he is threatened. And every single time it's just for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like the opposite of what I'd read about, I believe, I hope I'm not getting the country wrong, but I believe it was Denmark. It was one of the small northern European countries that was conquered by the Nazis.
Hmm.
And they had a king, Christian the 10th, something like that. And he would, during the occupation, he would go down by himself on his horse and like ride amongst the people, kind of greeting them and kind of talking with them, sort of keeping up their spirits, during this dark time. It's sort of the opposite of what this king does. He only goes down for his own selfish reasons to cause violence to get what he wants.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he has no use for these peasants.
Yeah. No, otherwise he sends his mayor to go do whatever he wants done and doesn't seem to be bothered. I think we only ever see him like feasting in his tower or whatever
Yeah.
when he's up there. Yeah. Yeah. Screw that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. You think part of the reason people have these kinds of stories is maybe, I mean, we have this inherent idea of a leader, and I know we probably inherit these ideas too. They diffuse from Plato and from other, thinkers and writers and everything. But yeah, you think people have these kinds of stories to kind of remind themselves of who is a good leader in the body politic and, in my life.
If I look at this whole thing from the perspective of there being some sort of guiding force in the evolution of humanity, whether
Mm,
you want to call that God or you want to call that the unconscious or you want to call that the line of ancestors behind us that set up all these stories for us to inherit or whatever, any combination thereof.
mm,
If I look from that perspective, I would want there to be stories that showed people how life was supposed to be and why life was supposed to be that
mm,
way. Show people that rapacious kings will bring about their own destruction if you confront them the right way.
mm.
You do not have the story, like I was just saying, the story that you have to just live under it because it's always that way. This is an antidote to that. The story that you have to fight them, this is an antidote to that.
Mm.
This is so I think in the very least, if I want to tone down the woo-woo as far as I can, in the very least, these stories persist through time because they in fact, I just wrote about this in my newsletter today. This is really fucking trippy. They name the demons. They tell us the things to watch out for. The story describes the situation as a whole and gives us a key to find a way through. In this case, the cultivation of self, the following of intuition, the keeping the levels separate, going on the quest, doing what you know is right and true and good. And the more people that do that, the greater the likelihood, if we're in a wasteland type kingdom, that the illegitimate rulership will be overthrown. That's just it's giving us that whole pattern, that whole package in a very short little story, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so that's sort of what these kind of things mean to me and why I think they've stuck around is on some level we're aware of that, whether that's the divine keeping these stories alive, whether that's our unconscious recognizing the patterns and saying, no, no, this one's important, hold on to this one. It has some gold, it has something very useful, some useful meaning at its heart.
Yeah.
I think before we got on the call, we were talking about Vervaeke and meaning and all of that. And
Mm.
and there's a meaning here. There's a powerful psychological story that can motivate us that can motivate us and show us what the right thing to do is so that we actually believe we can do it and we know the steps to take or at least have a figure of inspiration to look after that
Yeah.
isn't somebody who's necessarily just running around punching everybody in the face.
Yeah.
Sort of
Yeah, I agree.
tough guy hero kind of a thing is what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I like John Vervaeke's what he says about Plato is that we have a meta drive for wisdom, for uh and Vervaeke defines real rationality as a sort of psychological force to try to be in touch with reality. So we can
Mm,
talk about that as that has to do with the way we moderns sort of think of narrow logic. You know, you want to be able to kind of understand amounts of things and be able to compare and to, do the things that merchants do and everything. And there's some interesting, maybe historical stuff about how maybe even money kind of helped lead to mathematics and that sort of reasoning.
mm,
But in general, I like his idea of the rationality as sort of many different ways of keeping, yeah, tracking reality, trying to track reality,
mm.
internal and external. And Plato's idea is that, as we kind of clean up the eye that looks internally, we can see more clearly the outside and vice versa too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that um, in just in the way I was just talking about this story of it being sort of like threading the needle between succumbing to the tyrant or fighting the tyrant, sort of finding
Yeah.
that middle path there. Like that's the reality of the situation. If you're under a tyrant, is you're not going to live under them forever. No, nothing lasts forever, although it could be hundreds of years of a tyrannical regime,
Yeah.
but nothing is impervious. And if you fight evil, oftentimes you run the risk of becoming evil or of strengthening evil.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about reality, this story is pointing out a reality where you fall into neither of those pitfalls, and yet you still manage to develop um, something good. Something good manages to develop out of it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I definitely am more on board with rationality as a we need some word to mean true seeing. We need
Yeah,
some word to mean
yeah,
that. Then it shouldn't mean, well, okay, I thought this plus this equals this, so
yeah,
rationally it must be correct. Like you're not
exactly.
in touch
Yeah,
with anything at that point. You're just looking
yeah,
at numbers in your head. You're shadows on the wall. Very, very, very
yeah.
shadows on the wall, you know.
And that's what's so powerful about Vervaeke's analysis of modernity. That one reason we probably have such a meaning crisis is that we ultimately kind of think that we're doing that, and that's we sort of think that's all that we can do. We can only see into the mind. We're I think, therefore I am, and that's all that I am.
Hmm.
Just these conscious thoughts, and yeah, everything else is just subjective. I don't really believe it's not really true. It has nothing to do with reality. Yeah, so, and then there's nihilism, and uh, I might as well just be hedonistic or, amoral. I mean, there's literally people who have killed, who have said that it's, because there's no overall meaning, there's no God, there's nothing. So, I I'm a really smart person, and this other person was a doofus, and they mean they have no value, and so I might as well just kill them and kind of show my superiority. There's like a killing that happened in the
Hmm.
early 20th century about that something.
Fair
But
enough. I mean, it sounds very Dostoevsky, but I think what you're
yeah,
looking at
yeah,
right there is what happens when we fall prey to the inner tyrannical ruler. Nihilism, can't do anything about it. This is just the way things are. Um, I mean, killing people is just doing it's letting that thing enact its will on the world because nothing matters. I can do whatever I want. There's no. I mean, it's more complicated than because people aren't saying I can do whatever I want. Because if people actually could do what they want, they would find meaning. People want meaning. The fact that they can't find meaning, that it's called nihilism. If you're depressed by that fact, one, you don't understand nihilism correctly. But two, like it means you have a longing for meaning. It means that if you thought you could find meaning, you would find it. But no, there's no meaning, so now I'm just going to go do whatever I want to. Um, but that leads to poor results. And so if you're a scientist and you get poor results, it means you're doing a bad experiment. I mean, if you want a world where everybody's at everybody else's throat and nobody cares and there's no meaning, then but there is meaning and there's a longing for meaning. So where do we hang that? Traditionally we've hooked it into God, or we've hooked it into, I don't know, ritual, or whatever it is. We've hooked it into something, and those hooks don't work anymore. It's another thing I was writing about in my newsletter. I think I published this one, but the kind knife, everybody on Substack. Um, about it feeling like a cargo cult. You know are you familiar with the term cargo cult?
no,
I think it was during World War II in the Pacific, I think, but it was definitely during a war, and there was like a there was a base, there was an army base on an island with very primitive, well, I don't want to say very primitive, but with very, very mythic, ritualized lifestyle native folk. And they would see, I don't know the history of this, so this is more a cultural meme or a fairy tale. I'd
I
have to
think I
actually
have
do
heard
some
of this.
research. But like they would see the people calling on the radio and having the supplies get dropped in. And so they started building their own radios out of like shells and bamboo,
Yeah,
and they would call the ancestors, and they would ask the ancestors to bring them a supply drop.
yeah.
Um and I think there's a lot more to there's a lot more correctness to that view of the world than I think we give credit for in the West. These people are held up as ignorant and just sort of aping the trappings of civilization, which is what I'm pulling from as the metaphor from the story of like I feel like that's what like we did that in regards to the divine and meaning for so long. We sort of
Hmm.
just acted out the behaviors. We didn't try and understand the thing the behaviors were pointing to. We didn't try and keep that sacred alive and fed. in our society. We went from being able to do it at some point to thinking it kind of doesn't matter. We don't really have to take care of it, and we're good enough with all this science stuff. And
Mm,
yeah, we'll still go to church and whatever. And over time, the we stopped feeding the sacred with our attention. And so the sacred left. And then all of a sudden we're like, Nietzsche, God is dead. We've killed God. How are we ever? You can't kill God, but we've killed God as a symbol
hmm
of things we can hang our meaning on and get that sort of spiritual nourishment from that we actually need as beings in the world.
yeah.
Um, and then we say, oh well, there's no meaning. It means nothing. I can do, life is there's no point to it. It's there is a point. We have to discover it. We have to nourish those things to have them show up in us.
Mm,
Otherwise, they stay in the unconscious and they fade and they die. That's the purpose
mm,
that I see of religion. That's the purpose I see of God, of all this stuff is it was a culturally shared means of generating meaning
mm,
and feeding people on that level that they need to be fed.
mm,
And because we stopped taking care of the structure that provided that, we now think that it's impossible because we can't generate it ourselves with our own numbers. But it doesn't come from that part. It comes, we're
mm,
talking Ian McGilchrist, left brain, right brain. It doesn't come from the left brain. But because we can only do left brain, we
mm.
think that what the right brain is possible of doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's what nihilism is often taken to mean. I think, and I sort of hinted at this earlier, I'll be real brief as I have been talking for a bit, but I think I do want to just say that I think if you take nihilism 100% of the way, it can be very freeing and not in a destructive way. It can be very life affirming
Mm,
because if there is no inherent meaning to anything, then you have nothing constraining you. And that doesn't have to lead to immoral acts. If
mm,
you genuinely don't feel constrained, if you're not acting out of, oh, this world is a dark place and it is, there is no hope, and therefore I will kill a man because I can just kill a man and that's what I'm going to do. Like, if you're paying any kind of attention, you're not happy. That's not what you want to be doing. You're acting under the 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 assumption that there is supposed to be meaning and
mhm,
you are deprived of it.
mhm,
And therefore you have a right to act out. You're a victim of something.
mm,
You're the one that's hanging on to there being meaning in that
mhm,
particular scenario. If you
mm,
truly believed there was no meaning at all, you wouldn't need to kill somebody because you wouldn't need to prove that there was supposed to be meaning. And if there was meaning, then I wouldn't be killing this person. So because you've taken meaning from me, I can kill them. And so I'm
mhm,
going to go do that. You haven't gone all the way into the nihilism yet. If you
mhm,
can really genuinely understand that, like, there is nothing, there is meaning, and we can generate meaning, and we can feed the sacred, like I was talking about earlier. Um, we can generate that ourselves, and it is nourishing for us, and it creates a healthy society, and it brings a lot of benefit, brings a lot of creativity. Think of like the Gothic churches, like it creates something beautiful. It's where beauty comes into the world through us, and that's a great thing. There's no set structure that guarantees that meaning. That's what real nihilism is to me. There's no there's no formula. You have to go and discover it yourself. You have to create it yourself. You have to generate it with your own love and your attention and your intention and your work. And as you do that, you are nourished and you create nourishment in the world and you feed other people and everything can kind of grow. And if it's beautiful, and that's where meaning comes from.
mm,
But if you expect meaning to just be handed down to you in a book and you read it and you're like, okay, now I've got the meaning, you're in the marketplace. The magic dies. It's not there. And because we only know that marketplace, we don't know how to generate our own magic. We don't know how to feed ourselves. And then we complain that we can't do the thing. We complain that it doesn't exist. And that's what we mistake as nihilism.
So you're saying sort of, yeah, individually you can embrace know inherent meaning in things and then sort of make the meaning and in sort of, I mean, would you say in, yeah, religious ceremony and or creative acts and things. I mean, creativity and artistic work is kind of a big part of like our modern sort of values. You know, we tend to value the artist maybe more than anybody else. And, um, but yeah, would you say that's how we sort of create meaning and
Well, it's interesting, right?
do?
Because our as Vervaeke points out, we're in a bit of a meaning crisis as a society. And I would say traditionally the arts are one of if not the strongest wellspring of meaning of of when life is beautiful, we sense there's a meaning. It's like, oh, this is great, this is good, there's something to it.
Mm,
And but like I said, it comes from intention. So like where do we utilize the arts these days? Like I don't see any. I see a lot of new architecture that's ugly as hell. There's not a lot of art there. Um, Most of the beauty that we see, the creativity that is utilized in the market is telling movies, you know,
mm,
and to the degree that the director, the screenwriter is trying to tell a story that has meaning for the audience. There is that artistic, but as a culture, so much of that is like, well, we got to make a bunch of money, and I got to be a part of a machine that's making a bunch of money, so I get my needs taken care of. That's not an intention to feed a higher meaning. That's not an intention to create something sacred or good or true or beautiful. It's just to get your needs met, and so you're still operating on that marketplace level. You haven't aimed for something higher. The other thing you see a lot nowadays is, especially in like art schools. I've been sort of around a lot of art schools in my life for various seasons of my life. Like a lot of it is very heavily conceptual. So like I went to this
yeah.
art opening, and there was a the head of a bed, like a metal bed frame, just the
Yeah.
head of it, um, on its side, wrapped in some sort of a chintzy polyester silk replacement with
Mm,
these like little gold patterns, and then
mm,
like wrapped in like a ribbon, like a bow or something. And it was just sitting there. And like I'm sure if I read the artist's statement of what it was supposed to mean, maybe I'd get something from it, but it's so head-based. It's so just trying to make a point or critique society, or like, and all of that is usually like a mix of, well, I'm trying to do something good, and like I want people to see how smart I am, which again,
yeah.
I want
Yeah.
people to see how smart I am is the marketplace level. You're just trying to one up somebody. You're not trying to give your life over to a higher power. You're not trying to convince the higher power to come and enliven us. We're not petitioning the sacred or the divine or the good and the true and the beautiful. We're not trying to cultivate those things out of our reality. We don't
Mm,
think we can. So therefore, the best we can do is try and survive. And you do have to survive. Like I'm not going to say I have my problems with money. I have my problems with income and all of that. But if you don't, if that's all you focus on, then you fall into the wrong kind of nihilism. You blame the world for being meaningless. You blame the world because you feel empty. Um, and the reason you feel empty is because, at least nowadays, the world that we're all born into does not teach us how to generate this meaning. It doesn't show
yeah.
us how to find the sacred. And so we don't even realize it's possible. I mean, obviously it's there. It must be there because I'm talking about it. I must have got these ideas from somewhere. So I don't want to say we're completely bereft. I think there's a lot of good stuff under our culture. These rivers, these healthy rivers of meaning and truth.
Yeah.
But our culture as a whole does not seem oriented in that direction. And
Yeah.
therefore
Not at
all
all.
our culture is going the way of the rapacious king. Eventually, to the degree that to the parts of the culture that do not connect to that life-giving force, they will fade over time. And if we can connect to some life-giving force, and we can uh, do so in a way that is not resigning ourselves to the rule of the tyrant and is not fighting the tyrant because both of those are still on that lower level. But
mm,
if we can grow something better to make the tyrant obsolete,
mm.
then maybe we've got something,
Yeah,
you
if
know.
you can build a palace that's twice as good as the tyrant's palace and bring him out of his stronghold and into a weak position,
Hmm.
then you can win.
Yeah.
I think I see what you're saying about nihilism, that nihilism can be freeing. This sounds sort of Nietzschean in that you're yeah, kind of, we're freed. God is dead. The old God is dead. We're freed from the structures and things, and we have to come into something new. And yeah, and I hope that's not something, yeah, some kind of bunch of wars or something like that, which sort of 20th century sort of seemed to be the answer to totalitarianism and war. But yeah, I
Well,
see. So
again, that's
there's
a
a,
lack of the sacred, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's still war. It's still trying to win one over the other. It's still on that lower level of reality. And
yeah,
that'll always be there. But if that's the only thing there is, if you only have the sort of sacred, then you get very ungrounded and there's no way to relate to the world. But if you only have the world, then you're just tearing each other apart. And when you have both of them, when you're able to sustain both of them, then you have something healthy.
yeah, yeah. And both Nazism and communism were explicitly atheistic, and but you still need to point to something as something like the sacred, so it can be the the dictator leader, or the sort of patriarchs of communism, or the Führer, and with their occult kind of stuff too. Yeah, but I see what you, so it seems like the nihilism you're saying is good, is the freeing nihilism, but the nihilism we tend to have is a sort of this enslaving nihilism, where we're enslaved to this idea like I should have meaning, I should have these something that the old culture was pointing to, and I don't. And now I'm just going to throw tantrums about it and be like a little kid, and just kind of do whatever my id tells me,
Yeah.
do
Yeah,
whatever I
because
want.
if you say nothing has any meaning, but then you take that statement to have meaning,
Yeah,
you're not really being true to what you're saying.
yeah, that's
Like the
right.
statement has to cancel itself out to the point where like things don't have any meaning, things don't have any meaning, things don't have any meaning. Oh, thinking that things don't have any meaning doesn't have any meaning, and I don't have to think that anymore.
Yeah,
And then you're sort of at this point of like, well, what do I want to do? And what feels ideally, you're at a point of like, well, what feels genuinely healthy? What feels
mm,
genuinely good? And for me to spend my time on. Um, because so like you could say to that, like ways to sort of go wrong there would be like, well, what do I want to do? Well, I have to earn money, so I got to go get a job. So I gotta get a job I hate. Man, this sucks. If nothing has any meaning, you don't have to earn money. Maybe you want to earn money. Okay, well that's already got meaning where I have to earn money doesn't have meaning. It's just the way of things. I want to earn money. There's some drive, there's some meaning, there's a purpose there.
mm,
Okay, I want to earn money because I want to live. Wow, I actually want to live. No, it's no longer nihilistic. It's like I want to live because there's no meaning. I could live, I could live or I could die. There's no meaning that says I must live. There's no meaning that says I must die, except for the fact that we're going to die. But I mean, in this moment, like, which one do I want to choose? Do I want a life where I'm trying to make it better, or do I want a life where I'm making it worse? There's no meaning that says you have to choose either way. You get to choose. But ultimately, there's a good choice because it's the choice that makes you feel meaning. Meaning makes you feel alive. Alive makes you feel connected and generous, and it sort of builds on itself and it grows that way. But you have to cancel out the idea that meaning is given is forced upon you.
mm,
To me, that's what nihilism is. There is no meaning that can be forced upon me.
mm,
But that also means that there is no meaning to the idea that I can't have meaning. I
Mm,
can have meaning. It's just not going to be forced upon me. I have to make it myself.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that freedom, although I think like Dostoevsky, I'd be afraid of what a lot of people would do with it. And I think also
Mhm.
sometimes maybe pointing to it too much as a freedom or something like that. I think there is something about how on a so, societal level, like on an individual level, like a sort of balanced, sort of well-intentioned person becoming nihilistic, like you're describing, can be good. And you described a sort of thought process of building yourself back up from the bottom to basically being a decent, rather good person. I would wonder if that that scenario that you painted also would include like, okay, so I have a consciousness that can suffer. It's probably good not to suffer. It's probably good not to put suffering on others. And okay, and I'm not putting suffering on others. I'm working with them, and we're generating this good energy, and we're generating beauty and goodness, and that you could see like all sorts of things like emerging from that complexity and that lack of sort of malice or lack of despair and things. But I would also wonder for many people that maybe aren't willing to sort of go through that self-building kind of process, if it might, they might need to receive some sort of, you know, yeah, tradition or whatever. But then again, I guess we're talking about maybe sort of individuals helping to, and this is what Vervaeke's trying to do, maybe revive the good stuff from the past and then seeing what stuff we can grow forward into the future and sort of just, yeah. And I think maybe a little bit with this podcast, we're kind of trying to bring forth from the past the good things, keep alive that tradition, be a carrier, be a bearer, and then also bear forth new things maybe eventually, and sort of bring goodness into the world and meaning and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I think of it, at least for me, this goes back to the Gurdjieff tradition, but I think of it as like, for most people in the world, they don't really care one way or the other. They'll just sort of go. I don't know if this comes from the Gurdjieff tradition. I
Mm,
don't want to put this on that, but
mm,
most people will kind of go one way or the other. So if society as a whole is leaning towards one way, they kind of go that way, and if
mm,
there's enough force going the other way, they'll kind of go the other way.
mm.
Um, which is not even a bad thing, and I think to a certain degree we all do that. But um, and this is the part that I think does come from the Gurdjieff tradition, that if you had enough people working towards the good,
Mm,
society as a whole, it'll sort of magnetize that general mass of people who could just go either way. They don't really care. They're here to, eat food and make babies and have a good life. And they don't, if society tells them things are shitty, they're going to be like, okay, it's shitty. And if society tells them things are good and this is what they have to do, okay, they're going to go to church and they're going to be happy in church and do the best they can. Um, like those, like the more people who are striving to do something good, the greater the pull for the whole society is in that direction.
yeah, yeah, I
And
think
that's
that's right.
that's what I think you're talking about wanting to do with this podcast, and that's definitely what I'm wanting to do with my life for sure, as much as I
Yeah,
can. I mean, it's a little bit at a time. I'm not going to change all of society in the
yeah.
next 40 years that I have if I'm lucky, 40, 50 years if I'm super lucky. Um, who knows? Maybe I could, but I'm not counting on that being a thing. I'm just going to, akin to go back to our sharpshooter, I'm just going to do the rightest thing that's in front of me. I'm going to do the thing in front of me as rightly as I can. And I'm going to trust that as long as I follow the promptings of my heart, the promptings of meaning or morality or truth or whatever, that as long as my heart is aimed in a good way in the moment, as best as I can, I will contribute as much as I can towards that being the general direction that reality or society moves in.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can kind of only do what we can do in the moment. And yeah, there is also, yeah, kind of freedom in that. Like you can drive yourself crazy by trying to do too much, and there being an implicit sort of an idea that you can do much more, and maybe there's a lot of ego there. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I like that. Sort of,
Yeah.
and sort of societal and personal goodness and happiness maybe kind of can come from all that kind of mindful, good intention kind of action.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And not from a place of trying to overthrow whatever current thing you feel is leading society in a bad way, but also not to ignore it. I think those are the two problems. But if you
Mm.
like,
Yeah,
if
not
you
to be
don't,
a drunken sailor, like just
yeah,
kind of, yeah, doing your
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. But trying to move things in a good direction and paying attention to what is going on around you and responding to it honorably, like our hero does, and continuing to take steps forward that leads to a good future. And that's, I think, the secret that these tales pass down to us. It's how to move things in a good direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Well, sounds great. So probably next week we'll find another one. And
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Let's talk offline. I've got some family coming into town soon-ish. So when they're here, I'm gonna be booked up solid that week. But that's not till like the end of the month. So I'm just not sure what my schedule is, so I'll have to check that and get back to you.
okay,
But we will do
okay.
more of these for sure. This is a blast.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay,
Cool.
talk to you soon.